Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 40K Frontiers, episode 12, Not Your Normal Blokes. With us tonight, sadly, you've only got two of us. We've got Mr. Towse. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, right. We do not have all of the normal blokes on for this episode right now.
Sadly not. We got the good blokes.
Yeah.
We got the good blokes. And myself, Sam. Unfortunately, anyway, so he should be joining, hopefully, during this live show shortly. And our beloved Korean Alex, sadly, can't make it with us tonight. But we'll be sure to cover his event recently. So the Korea SummerSlam #1. So we'll be talking about shortly. So, but before we dive deep in, Towsey, how have you been? What's been happening?
So you put the Google document of what we're doing thing, and you'd auto-populated Donkeycon in the thing there, and I'm like, we haven't recorded a regular thing since then, so it's been busy, I guess, or weird, or full on. So, but good. So yeah, I had Donkeycon, which is our local shenanigans tournament, and there were many shenanigans. It was a good laugh. I wrote things down so I could remember. I have, as always, been making terrain. I've still got a little bit to go before Sunday. We're recording on Wednesday night. And I think I've chosen missions, got half the layouts sussed. I probably need to design and make some templates to help me set out layouts. And I'm providing armies for 2 players for the event, apparently. So I need to make some models for one of them. I think that's everything. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. I think I went on stat check since I last came on. Did that also happen, Sam?
Oh, but just plug it anyway. So, while the WTC was running, you went on stat check with Nathan Henning and the Custody Cliff and talked all things math and good.
Yeah. I don't know if I talked a little bit about maths. I don't know if I talked good, but I definitely talked.
You talked good,
we went on tangents. It was a good laugh. So yeah, check out the StatCheck guys as well. They're doing good work. Their dashboard and stuff gets shared around all over the show, used by the network. Yeah. How about you, Sam? What have you been up to? Oh, hang on. No, I had something lined up for this. I also had a wonderful game against you, Sam. And it was a real good time. And what were you doing for that game, Sam?
Well, I guess my moniker has now become, I'm a filthy meta chaser. It just happens this way. But we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Sorry, apologies. Like always, I forget to highlight what we'll be talking about on this show. So, as Towse talked about a little bit before, talking about Donkeycon. So, 1,000 point doubles event, but with a bit of a twist, happened in New Zealand. We'll also talk about some upcoming and recent events that happened in the Pacific region and around the world. So, the Korean GT, SummerSlam #1. Then we have Rolling for Damage GT coming up this weekend. So the 27th of August, I believe, if math is correct. But this weekend.
Were we going to do a bit of a chat about Lakes of Blood that happened in New Zealand as well?
You smashed it, Lakes of Blood as well. But the main segment of the show, and maybe hint to what the title relates to, we have Liam and Dineeth from the Normal Blokes talking about all WTC Team Australia and how they did it at the World Team Championships. So stay tuned for the middle part of the segment to talk about that. But enough about them. Enough about all what's later in the show. Let's talk about me. This is me time, okay, right now. So
bandwagon boy o'clock. Let's go.
Yeah. So as Towse alluded to, I played against him with his Chaos Knights and playing some sisters. So an army I've sort of been interested in for a while, painting them nice and candy pink because I love some candy pink. It looks beautiful. But also being a bit of a filthy meta chaser as well, because
and
there
also,
are good reasons for it. Okay, there
also
are
very important. Very importantly, right? Annoying Ben, who doesn't like the candy pink, right? Is it him or someone else that hates the color?
Correct. Yeah, he doesn't like candy. He doesn't like candy paint schemes. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, people can have wrong opinions all the time. I mean, listen to us; we have wrong opinions all the time. But anyway, it doesn't stop us, you guys, from listening to the show. So that's what matters. So, but yeah, so painting my sisters a battle, getting some test games in. I'm roughly 6 games deep in with them. So. And I finally got some wins with them. So it's taken a little while. It took me 4 games of getting berated with Yanari, with Chaos Knights, with Nids and a Black Legion, and finally getting around to it. So I got 2 wins in these last 2 games, which feels good. Not what it's about, but it's just nice to get that sort of solid ground on your feet, just get some feelings back under your feet and start feeling good on things. So, but other than that, so just helping grow a local store. So locally in this community, we got another LGS who's looking to get into 40K, which is fantastic. And they have a slow community growing, like a 500 point, 750 point games and tournament little things. So tomorrow in Australia time, I'll be heading over there to help run its 750 point tournaments, which is great. And then yeah, coming down from the Team Australia WTC victory. Spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't know. So yeah, it's been good though. It's been good. Getting a bunch of painting done, getting some games in, settling into the new norm. So yeah, it's been good. Been very, very good. Before we get on to the main topics of the show, we're going to give a quick plug. So recently, the Best in Tabletop released, I guess, a new tier per se in terms of a merged tier. So in YouTube, if you want to subscribe to the premium feature, there is an option there. You can join both the YouTube premium and the Discord for $15 a month. Get the best of both worlds instead of paying $10 a month for the Patreon or Patreon, which was the Discord, or $10 for YouTube. Best deal around, best 140k Discord going around, 100%, not biased at all. So, yeah. And then, obviously, also, if you'd like to support us, there's a merch store. So, Best in Tabletop /store is, I believe, the link. There'll be a link in the description for anyone who's doesn't know. And you can buy some merch there. Have some great singlets, some great t-shirts, some coffee mugs, some computer mats, whatever you like. It's probably there. And some sweet-ass headbands. I know I've got my order in, and I can't wait to wear it when it arrives here in Australia.
Have you ordered a headband?
I haven't ordered a headband. I ordered some coffee
Okay.
mugs, some singlets, and some good old Stomp 'em Good t-shirts. So hell yeah.
I thought you might have ordered one, so that it was like at least 2 ordered, one for you, and then one that someone else has ordered for Lennon. But yeah, I think that was a large portion of why that was made.
But no. Sadly, when I put like a little headband around this curly fro, I mean, it doesn't look so great. I mean, you may have seen Semi-Pro and what Will Ferrell looks like with a headband. Sam and headbands don't mix. Like, I can't pull it off. I'm no Will Ferrell in multiple ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. Who needs to talk first on the run sheet now? Are we up to that again?
Let's do it. So, this part.
Other Alex is going to talk. Easy.
Yeah. So this past weekend, we had the Korea SummerSlam #1. So the first big event, GT sized in Korea. So it had 21 people all up. And it was the biggest, largest 40k event for themselves. So there was 6 rounds, and it was a great event, great day. Our very own Korean Alex went to the event running Custodes, the Golden Boys, and on screen for our video viewers, we have some pictures from the event. So some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pictures. Some really nice terrain and well-painted armies. And obviously we had Suhoon and Demetrius on previously to talk about Korean 40k. And, well, let's see it in action. And it's great to see community growing bit by bit and slowly getting there, which is fantastic. So, yeah. Anything you would like to add, Towse?
Not that I can immediately think of. I'm like slightly trying to work out what's happening with Lakes of Blood, so I can pretend to be organized. But yeah. I think Alex went along. He did all right. I think he was maybe hoping to do slightly better with middling results. But yeah, he has had some. He's yet again like switching around how he's running his custodies. It's cool though. He's always got like strong opinions. He had some fun with Cotiers, the like who like slams the no fun allowed. You don't have enough CP for that stratagem button. He didn't gotcha people, but just like even with warning, it can really screw stuff over. But he wants to take a paw. That's largely what I remember. And he's just gonna like Mad Lad spend half his CP on an outrider detachment, I think, and then the other half on upgrading his bike captain. I think is his future plans. So Trajan's going to pay for his own. No, I don't think he even has Trajan. He's just like, yeah. Anyway, crazy stuff. Yeah. So yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, I heard like Cotiers is like, for anyone who doesn't know, basically it costs an additional CP once per battle round, once per turn. You call once per game.
I think it's a once per game thing. And so it's like it's a bit like Vect, but like once per game, and it's the stratagem costs 1 more to use this time. And if you can't pay that CP, you can't use the stratagem. I don't know what happens to your existing CP that you're trying to spend, but anyway.
It gets used. It gets used quite enough. It's pretty rude. So
wow.
So also highlight. So this was highlighted on the Thursday show, hosted by the lovely Paul Murphy, Justin Henshaw, and the one, the only Adam, the great Camilleri, the late and great Camilleri. So and yeah, so like they talked about on the show. Yeah, Inquisitor is a jerk. Like I've never heard about him. I've never seen him on the tabletop. Man, just be able to like if you only have 2 CP, try and interrupt. Like, no, it's going to cost you 3. You lost your 2 CP. Good job. That's pretty rude.
I hope Noah doesn't get upset about me mentioning this, but he shared with me a list that he's going to run. It's got Cotiers in it, and like man, there was some. It was funny. This is a friend of the network, Noah Bodome of Aegis Games, and he was joking about how like if he's playing against Blood Angels, and they go to Full On Fury, he's just like, "Nah, man, you got 1 CP. It costs 2. No Full On Fury for you." It was
Death company everywhere.
yeah, that was deeply amusing to me. So yeah, Cotiers can be a jerk, but it means you can't take before the witch. Cool.
Yeah.
What's next on the run sheet?
This weekend in down under 40k time, we have the 27th, 28th of August. We have the Roll for Damage GT, and so I wanted to highlight this event. So for some context, so the South Australia boys, so the people who run and host Adelaide Uprising or Uprising Adelaide, so the biggest event in Australia. They hosted this GT called Roll for Damage GT. So it used to be called something else, which sadly I can't remember. But unfortunately, last year, one of the great members of the South Australian community, and Andy Damage Penn, who was an amazing Orc player, and he actually won the event, funnily enough, this GT, which the name replaced 2 years ago. A year and a bit ago. So this is the first time Roll for Damage is being hosted. He won this event last year with, funnily enough, like it was the first event to use Speedwire, basically. It was like the first initial times when Speedwire was coming up with Freebird Orcs, and
absolute degeneracy.
Yeah, so that was funny enough. So like this is like before, like I think the Orc Codex sort of got released, so it got released, and like people were just sort of figuring it out. And like this is the first time it got hosted, and people are like, "Oh wow, cool! Look at this all buggy list for freebooters. This is so sweet. This is so cool." And, like,
call an ambulance, but not for me.
So Andy Damage Penn. So he was running to my understanding, he was always running Orc buggies, like just an absolute mad lad of the South Australia community. No matter how good they were, he was always running them, and just a great human being on and off the tabletop is always what I heard. So so this GT is being hosted in his honor, in his name. They've got a cool symbol and stuff for him, and they're just doing a bunch of fundraising for him. So on the screen, so you'll see some of the faction breakdowns. So it's actually 72-player GT in South Australia, which is fantastic. So a 2-day event, and some of the South Australia's best and brightest coming out to play, and Adam Napier. Little shout out to him. So so 72 players, as you see from the faction breakdown. 15% of being Necrons, so a big meta shift there in South Australia with Necrons. A bunch of Nids with 7%, and a bunch of all the other top meta armies happening there. But I wanted to highlight this event because the South Australia community this week has been nothing but fantastic in sharing all these memes leading up to the event, because the TO, Simon Vickers, absolute legend, one of the TOs for Adelaide Uprising, was going to release pairings on Wednesday. And the context is he didn't release it like first thing on Wednesday. So the whole South Australian community went to town on Simon Vickers and released some amazing memes about all the pairings and about how everything is happening. Just all the fun stuff. So it was fantastic. And sorry for audio listeners, you can't hear them, but if you'd like to go back and watch the audio video feed, you can see some of these fantastic memes about what will happen. So fantastic. And it's going to be a great event. So really looking forward to seeing what happens throughout. There's all the memes just relating to how everyone's meta chasing to Necrons and all the other fun factions throughout town. How some people are playing Imperial Guard instead of maybe the meta chasing Crons and Chaos. Do
we have the Solar Pulse in here, Sam?
I sadly do not have Solar Pulse, but some mad lad who's running Magnus to Red and looking for the right Lord of War, but using the Simpsons wrong barbecue meme. Fantastic, and just endless hordes of things. So just absolutely fantastic. And if you'd like to join, there's a South Australia Facebook community. You can see all the memes. It's just absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't go without shouting it out.
I think you should go check those in the Frontiers chat in the Discord, Sam. Then people can find them more easily.
There we go. Boom.
Even a better way also, I wasn't paying 100% attention, but I did sleuth through and assume that it is the Adelaide 40k Grand Tournament in 2020 that Mr. Damage Pen, is it? Andy Damage Pen won. And because that was won by him with Buggy List. I assume that'll be the event. So
that would be him, yeah. So
cool.
And so
the Adelaide 40k Grand Tournament is now what is it? The Roll for Damage event. So yeah.
There you go. Cool. In chat we have Aiden asking, so what is the best cheese list? I mean, whatever Adam Napier's running, that's definitely has to be it. So it's just some CSM nonsense.
Aiden, I got it. You run Towse, you go Storm Surge, you go Shadow Sun and a Supreme Command, you go Ethereal with Hover Drone, Long Strike with the Burst Cannons, triple Hammerhead and a Spearhead detachment with the Burst Cannons, and a single Rubrica Crisis unit with Max Plasma, Max Shield Drones, Max Shield Generators. That comes out to, what is it? It comes out to 2,000 on the nose. I got bored with Battlescribe and wondered if things could fit and have upset some friends.
That sounds
That's my best
woeful.
answer.
Absolutely woeful, but I guess we'll allow it, sadly. I mean, the lovely Aiden has suggested Storm Surge and a Million Crew. That's basically the exact same, right? 100%.
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic. So, next thing I want to highlight, so this past weekend in South Australia, South Africa, so Cape Town, South Africa, we had the Sword Con 40k GT. So it was a 5-round event in Cape Town, South Africa. And yeah, 28 players, 5 rounds. Fantastic. Good job getting some people there in South Africa playing some 40k. We'll try and get those guys on, try and have a chat to them. So yeah, just wanted to highlight a bit of a remote event. Shout out to those boys. So
hell yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, and for our live listeners, we're just about to take a break. So you can join us with some WTC interview with Liam and Dineeth. And catch you guys. With us today, we have the wonderful and beautiful Dineeth.
Good start.
And obviously, the man, the myth, the legend, the great one, the mad doc himself, Liam Hackett. How you boys doing?
Pepsi back.
Oh, we're good, mate. We are happy to be on. Thank you for having us, and
thank you, guys.
We are excited to talk WTC.
Yeah. Happy days. We want to any other way, but before we get started, so obviously these people are from the Normal Blokes podcast, the competitive podcast about the 40k experience. That's the one. That's the tagline, something like that. And
hang on, can I get it right? Is it a podcast dedicated to improving the competitive 40k experience?
I like
it. I
Get
got
this
it.
man a badge.
I'll come for you guys at the ANZTC. Just like Hayden chickened out the most recent one.
Tragic.
I was keen to see you guys there. Hey?
we would have loved to see you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, he was scared of like COVID and like getting stuck over there, and he's got a job and stuff. Like he had sort of like kind of reasonable reasons. Yeah.
This sounds like a lack of commitment, really.
But for those that don't know, so Dineeth and Liam host podcast Normal Blokes, but they're also, most importantly, they're part of the recent Team Australia team. So starting with Dineeth. So Dineeth, what were you on the team for? What was your role? And also just give us a background about how you got into 40k.
Yeah, man. Well, it's great to be on the show. Me and Sam have played a couple of times. We've got this thing that I can't beat Sam in real life, only on TTS. He just skull drags me whenever we play in real life. So, but look, it's lovely to be on. I started playing 40k maybe about 5-6 years ago. Initially started painting because I had bad hand skills, and to be a dentist, I need to learn how to paint or do something to actually be coordinated. But started playing, met the lovely Liam, and it's been a fairy tale ever since up in Brisbane. So been lucky enough to put together the Normal Blokes with a bunch of guys and make our own state teams and now national teams. And for WTC, I was one of the 4 coaches, so the head coach for the program. And yeah, it was amazing, man.
And awesome. And Liam, so yourself, obviously, I guess one of the players there, as we know. And then how did you get into 40k also?
Yeah, man. I started 40k when I was in first year uni. A bit embarrassing, actually. I didn't even know it was a game. I played like the Dawn of War games on PC, and I was like, this is sick. Like, I love these games. And a friend of mine was like, it's a tabletop game, right? And I was like, what is a tabletop game? And several $1,000s and a notably larger bald spot later, here we are.
Hit it with the
One
solar
CP,
pulse.
Solar pulse, yeah.
Hit it with the solar pulse.
Oh man,
too good. So guys, obviously you guys are part of, so Liam yourself, so you've been to WTC or ETC as it was previously known before, part of the 2019 squad, and like it's been a long journey since obviously they announced the WTC, and then the things happened. WC got cancelled, and they got cancelled again. So what's been happening? Were you guys both part of the original squad, and have you just been practicing and learning ever since, or were you guys both recent additions, or what's sort of been happening since sort of 2019? Start with yourself, Liam, if you like.
Yeah. So I think the momentum sort of persisted, to be honest. Like, I really think this is a team that was 3 years in the making. We in many ways, I think count your blessings. I think COVID delaying the event actually gave us more time to gel as a team, refine the team, and really get it as weaponized as it could be. For me personally, I've always tried to get better, be better, and try and learn from my mistakes. And 2 more years of practice and losing games and getting better only helped us. I don't think it ever stopped. Hopefully now there'll be a break, but it's it never stopped.
Fantastic. And so, Dineeth, obviously, this is your first ETC, WTC experience. So, what has this been like? You've been part of the process for a little while now. Obviously, for those who don't know, these guys, they did a podcast a long time ago at the 2019 ETC, and Dineeth was a proud fanboy following it all along in Serbia. So, so now it's your first time attending. So, like, what was the prep like leading up to this?
Yeah, so I can safely say that I've never prepared for an event this hard that I was playing in, and I wasn't even playing in the thing. So, it was, I reckon, we did a fair bit. Like, the players did so much in terms of practice games, and once lists came out, practicing other countries' lists against each other. We were joking on another show that we've done since we've come back that I reckon 50% of our practice games were against the Greek Tau list. It's like just one list, but yeah, the prep was crazy. It was like every weekend, team got together. On the coaches side of things, we were preparing packs for players. We prepared a 55-page cheat sheet document that summarized all the lists. So the lists all together are like 270 pages. But then we also made documents, so when pairings happened, we just pulled out a piece of paper, showed the players all the tricks and stuff. So coaches did that. And one of the things that I wanted to do for the team is get the coaches working in some form of order rather than chaos. And 40K coach, being a coach for a team is different. It's not like being a sports coach. What we kind of analogized it to is like Formula One racing, and we're the pit crew. And we're doing everything we can to get the players firing on all cylinders, taking all obstacles away from them so they can just focus on driving or playing. And I think, all the other coaches, they kicked it out of the park. It was a great campaign. We can delve into that as we keep talking.
Yeah, fantastic. So you touched on there, you did a bunch of prep work. So you had the 55-page document and you're chatting. Was it every single weekend you guys were chatting and prepping to lead up to WTC? And like, when did that sort of start? Has it been all the way out for 3 years, or has it been since Uprising of this year? Like, when has it been sort of happening?
Yeah, it definitely, I think, intensified in the last couple of months, especially in the month before we traveled. Big commitment from the boys outside of Queensland. Pretty much everyone traveled to Queensland to have like a boot camp, long week, where they pretty much took an extra holiday just to come to Brisbane and play games, practice pairings, rate matchups, which is really, really good. It's kind of convenient for Australia, probably more so even than places like the US, in that the Team Australia players and coaches are quite, concentrated. Like, you have Brisbane and then you have Melbourne. We had, like Chris Wright and Josh McMillan from New South Wales, but by and large, you kind of have the Vic boys and the Queensland boys. And it meant that if you wanted to play a Team Australia player on a Thursday arvo after work, you could go and make it work. So, we've been playing games together, bashing heads, I suppose, for years now. Very well practiced at this point.
Yeah, not like in Team America where it's like, right, we have one house with half the team, and then there's old mate like over or just on like all over the show.
Yeah, and it was interesting.
Quite spread out.
Yeah, I was going to say it's also been interesting with like a longer campaign of like 3 years, even though it wasn't serious the whole time through. It was a good opportunity for a lot of the team that was around for that time to really get to know each other. And we, from the sidelines, from the way I saw it, we got to know how people think and work. And one thing is that we one thing we saw when we were there is we weren't a team of 12 individuals. We were definitely a unit, a team of 12 that everyone had their part, and that was great to see.
Did you guys have any sort of like, was there any level of burnout or anything, or like after successive WTCs were cancelled? Was there any sort of feeling of like, oh, we're working towards this thing, the goalposts keep getting shifted, or did you just like heads down? It's like, cool, we'll do more prep, come back even better.
I think I don't know, for me personally, the burnout wasn't really because of WTC, and by that I mean, by that point, like both Dineeth and I work in healthcare. The whole COVID thing has we could talk about that all day. I think in general, I was pretty like, weddings had been postponed, weddings had been cancelled, parties postponed, parties cancelled. My work was just shambles. And so when it was like WTC's been put back a year, I was like, add it to the list. Like, it was, it's sort of just it didn't hit me too hard because I saw it coming. And I think that now that it's all said and done, I have no regrets that it did get pushed back. I think it actually served us well overall.
I mean, it would be hard to do, better than winning.
I can dream.
Yeah, you dropped 2 points or something, Liam. You got to get those back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. No worries.
Yeah, Mr. 132 out of 140. It's yeah, and I think, funnily enough, Liam, you're one of the members on the 2019 squad, and man, that team was so close to doing it. It was like, I remember watching from home. Like, a few of us were at our place staying up watching the finals, and we could see how close it was to Australia taking it out. And I think everyone on that squad was hungry. And man, it could have been 5 years, whatever. They would have still gone, and they would have still pushed it. That's how much they wanted it.
I mean, like, speaking personally, I know a lot of the boys on the team were hungry. For me, I was starving for the singles, and I was famished for the teams. I was absolutely fanging for it. Last time in Serbia, I played my teams list in the singles event too. I ended up I think I came 6th overall, but I played basically for the win at the end and ended up dropping down a lot. And then we played for the win for teams and ended up dropping for 4th. So it was right there, like for both events, so close. And so for the last couple of years, it's very much been, when we go back, I want both. I want to win the singles. I want to win the teams. And I'm absolutely ecstatic that we managed to do both. Team Australia domination.
Yeah,
it's a shame you took a list of the singles, mate.
It is a shame that Ghost Arcs are bad.
There's 2 things to touch on, because there's the different lists, and then how long did you actually have before submitting that list? Like the Ghost Arc? Is that story? I've heard 3 hours, 10 minutes, 3 minutes. Is any of that true?
Unfortunately, that is quite true, but in some ways it's an exaggeration. So basically what happened was I spent months and months and months on, actually not months, I basically spent so many hours rather on my teams list. I say hours because the Necron FAQ and stuff was actually only like a couple of weeks before this sub, so really I didn't have that long. But I spent oodles and oodles of time on my teams list. And then about a day before this sub, a more robust conversation was had amongst the team where it was decided that we would not play our teams lists for singles. And at the time, it's frustrating, but I understand the method behind it and I fully respect it. And, whatever you say, it ended up working, right? So about a day before this sub, I realized that I have to play a different list. And I spent the majority of that day negotiating with Eric, the captain, asking him what proportion of my team's list I could keep the same, because I really didn't want to change any of it. I really liked my team's list. After a little while, I think Eric probably got fed up with me and decided, Liam, you have to drop all of the Canoptech models, all of the Scarabs, and all of the Wraiths. This was about 3 hours before list sub for singles. So then I spent the next 30 minutes going upstairs to my 40K cabinet and working out what I could paint in time to go to Belgium. And I discovered that I had a couple of Ghost Arcs and 40 Warriors. I then used all of the prep time painting it, and I played the list one time before the event. So whilst that sounds like I'm being a major asshole, forgive me, the reality is, thank Dineeth gets it. The reality is that the other half of the list was identical to my team's list. So even though I hadn't played any games with my singles list, I'd played 50 plus games with my team's list. I knew how Necrons functioned inside and backwards. And so even though it is epic disrespect to say that I didn't put any effort into my singles list, I put a lot of effort into Necrons in general. Like I put a lot of prep work in. So, at the end of the day, I know the faction well enough, and I've put a lot of time to make it work, because I'm not the sort of player who can just pick up an army and play it. I got to put a lot of book work in and play a lot of games. It's what I did for cons.
So you put the time and effort in convincing Eric to let you take enough that it was the same list. You just traded up blocking
End of the
people.
day, campaigning is part of the game, mate. It's all political.
Yeah, you're like, all right. So instead of like, because I heard the story from Anthony that apparently like you played him on like the table quarters one, and he says like, when you put dice out to like mark out deployment zones, he was just like, yeah, you did that with scarabs. So did you just trade out like these blocking idiots for being like canoptic models to being warriors and ghost arcs? Is that basically it?
Pretty much, but I very quickly realized a very unfortunate fact, and it's that if you take all of the melee units out of an army, it's bad. It's like, so I encountered in singles, I encountered far too many situations where things could have gone horribly wrong, and one situation where they did go horribly wrong. The situation was my opponent had a Terminator model. And my list was physically incapable of killing Terminators because they ignore my guns. Like the guns just don't do anything. Strength 4 AP1 is an irrelevant profile to a Terminator. That was very sad. That was very depressing.
Damage 1 as well.
-1.
Yeah, damage 1 into 1,000 some Terminators. Doesn't feel good.
It was just not good.
But yeah, so you both guys played in the Warmaster GT. So obviously, Liam, you played with your Necron list, a bit different to your team's list, and Dineeth, you played with your Death Watch border security list. So I love it.
Border security, yep, that's it.
So obviously, you talked about there, Liam, about how you had to change your singles list, your team's list to be a singles list. So do you, I guess that's based upon the philosophy of with Eric back in 2019, how his Gaunt Carpet list got scouted by some alleged personnel, and then yourself with your Mega Knobs got scouted out, and there's been stories of that sort of similar thing. Do you think that's still a thing that you have to do in moving into the future? Or
I absolutely do, and I think that what happened during WTC, which I'll touch on a bit later, kind of proved the point in many ways. Australians are very, very proud of our sort of unique list design philosophy. I think that goes for the whole country. I think we like running weird, wonderful, and wacky lists. And one thing that became clear is, for example, Eric, I think Eric took the most unique list with his GSC to the WTC. One of only, I think, 3 GSC players, and of those, the most notably unique GSC list of that, and also 4th highest overall performing player at the whole event, which goes to show that Australians can do amazing things with weird, wonderful, and wacky bush tech. But at the end of the day, what we noticed was that during some of our later rounds, coaches from other teams were coming over, holding the GSC Codex open, watching Eric's games, like watching it, being like, "What is this stratagem?" Like that they were actively watching him play, and
there was someone literally filming it for a bit.
Yeah, and so in general, I think that if we had taken all of our lists to singles, you're giving people more time to do that and more time to understand it. And we had a lot of really unique lists this year, like we did in Serbia. Hayden Walduck's approach to Tau, the Far Side Enclaves, infantry-based commander spam was unique amongst all the Tau lists. Obviously, Eric's GSC was quite unique. Jeremy Martino's Sisters list, even though Bloody Rose is very common, he took no Retributors, no Morven Val. He had just more units, more bodies. It was a unique approach to list building.
Didn't he have the Triumph?
Yeah,
he did. He did.
The Triumph absolutely slapped in that list. It was amazing.
Even Chris Wright's Eldar was not Hail of Doom. It was a different sort of variant, which sort of means that you've got this really unique tech that the more you show people what it does, the more they can get ready for it. And on an individual level, I can go and look up the rules on Wahapedia, right? Like I can go and Google whatever I need to. But when other countries are doing pairings into a team, seeing how an individual player plays an army changes how you pair into it. Are they an aggressive player? Are they a defensive player? That sort of stuff. It's information that benefits us more than it benefits them, because we're on the jolly other side of the world to everybody else. We can hide. We can hide down yonder and not show people what we're doing. But, the Americans, the Brits, even, the French, who have a really prominent online streaming community, we can learn things by doing the bookwork beforehand and seeing what they play.
It's like your Meganobs to dispatch Nick at the last ETC, right? Like, because normally, like back then, GSC dumps the orcs, but you could hide the Meganobs sort of thing, right? Like that sort of just play things slightly differently. It can flip a matchup, and because if people think in teams, right? If both people come out thinking they've got okay pairings, like if they're happy with pairings, someone's got some misinformation, right? And are going to get surprised
Someone's
by it.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you go into a matchup and both of you think you're getting 16 out of 20, and you're like, one of us is wrong, like, and I don't think it's me. It's like, call an ambulance, but not for me. Like, it's like, but like from my experience, this is the second time. There's been some Australians that have travelled quite a lot for 40k events, and I'm not one of them. I've only left the country one time, played 40k, and that was to go to Serbia last time. And my experience there was profound disrespect for like Australian list design in general. Just people sometimes when English is your second language, especially when you're playing in Europe, people could be very blunt. But also, I don't think the Americans and the Brits have that excuse. So sometimes they would say things like, Meganobs are bad, or I'm going to table you now, which is lovely to hear during deployment before you beat them. And this time, my experience was a little bit different, and I think that over time, Australians are sort of reinforcing the reputation that we are good 40k players. As a country, we've got a robust meta, we've got a good tournament scene, and we're growing every year. Australians are getting better and better. This year, for example, my personal experience was pre-event. Some teams were like, Liam's list bleeds no prisoners, and therefore it's bad. While I was playing the USA team, Nanavati came over and as a joke said, your list is bad. It's only going to get 19. And, he's actually aware of how funny the past situations were. Like I think he's having a giggle at his own expense.
It's like when they say Eric's not good, he's just fast.
Yeah, I assume like it's hard to know the line, especially with, I guess, like different countries like Australia, New Zealand, England, Scotland. Those sort of there's the whole friendly banter sort of jokes, right? Like, your list bad as a sign of respect, compared to other people saying, no, it's bad, actually just not respecting it, right? Like, yeah.
A little bit of a change. But so speaking of your list, obviously you talk about your Bush Tech GSC list and your wild wacky Necron list. So
it was all Aussie adventures, mate.
Honestly, I saw your list, Liam, as well. Oh, sorry, Sam. Not that sorry. I saw your list, Liam, and it's just like, man, as far as Necron lists go, right? It's like, hang on, why does this not just get like shot off the table? And I hear, or like get killed by something. It doesn't. Like I could see some people just not quite, and I knew there would be something with it from you as the player, right? Like your old Thousand Suns list with the transports and just a bunch of dudes were the same. And I guess some people that know, that'd be like the disrespect sort of thing, right? Like if Australians because they're like neighbors, you start to go, well, there must be something here. I don't know what it is.
Well, I found out. They found out. So you talked about list design. So what sort of approach, so maybe Dineeth you can touch on as the coach, when you're designing your lists, did you come in like a very simple mindset of like attack a defender, or was it to go into a certain matchups like, well, I don't know, Liam's Necron list is going to absolutely punish Sisters, is going to punish this? Or was it like a hybrid approach or a completely unique approach? Was it like a complete certain table set? Like what was the sort of philosophy around list design for you guys?
Yeah, look, to be perfectly clear, it was mainly Eric and the players that kind of came up with, what factions do we need to play and what factions would be good. But ultimately, we we picked the faction on the list for the player. So, Liam's a classic example of a player who's a classic sword player. He's out there to get the big wins. We're going to pair him into something solid, and he's going to come back with a ridiculous number, hopefully in the double digits. We have other players, excellent players like Jeremy Martino, Simon Gochovic. Excellent. Love that. Simon Gochovic. So great players that are really good at scrapping for points, and they almost thrive in the matchup where they kind of set up to almost lose the game but come back with 8, 9, 10 points, and their opponent just has no idea what to do. Like their opponents, they're expecting the 20, and all of a sudden this player it's a 9-11 or 10-10, and that's the matchup where those players build a list for that particular role. So we had 2 or 3 of them. We had 2 or 3 kind of big swords with, Liam's Necrons, Chris's Eldar, which ended up being, a big heavy hitter, and it turned out to be Eric's GSC, which was just clobbering fools. And then we had some more scary, versatile pieces. So Ducky's Towse, which was a lot more than a lot of people expected, and our Knights list, which, funnily enough, only having a 1 Knight list, not having Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights, meant that we couldn't really pair aggressively. I know Liam's mentioned this as well. We couldn't really pair aggressively with 2 Knight lists to kind of pin people. We had to more use the Knights defensively to catch people out, or to bully a pairing a certain way, or to use the Knights as a bit of a fire blanket to jump on something that no one else wanted. So it was, I think it worked out beautifully, and we kind of aimed to have the players quite responsible for their own list and faction. And that meant the numbers going into the pairing spreadsheet, there was accountability there, and we could rely on, if this person's given us this number, it's because they've played the list, they've played the matchup, they trust themselves to score it, rather than just a captain putting in numbers because of Tyrannid should beat Eldar or whatever.
Yeah, it's also important to note you guys didn't have much long to actually test and play a list, because Nephilim dropped, and was it 2 weeks later list sub was, and then you had like a whole month to then practice against all the other teams' lists. So heading to the event, so obviously you guys put a lot of prep work into it. Then the week before flying out to WTC, had a boot camp. What were you scared of? Like, what was, oh my god, this is terrifying? What were you scared of? The Great Tau list, obviously 50% of your reps were into it, noting they were in your pod. But what were some other nations you were scared of, or certain matchups you were scared of?
I mean, for me personally, I was actually stunned by how many Imperial Knights there were. Like Dineeth touched on it before. We had our Imperial Knights, but I think a pretty reasonable proportion of all of the teams had both Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights in the one team. And we worked out, I guess, over the course of the first couple of rounds that a lot of teams were putting both Knights lists up early to pick the lighter tables so they could just shoot you off the table and blow you up. And that was a pretty solid tactic. A lot of the teams have worked out that was quite a valid way to approach pairings. So in general, I was pretty afraid of versing one of these gunline Imperial Knights armies when I had limited walls to hide behind. I think the amount of Tyrannids was also really prevalent. I was quite afraid initially of a lot of the Leviathan warrior spam armies, because I actually only ever played against it once with Simon playing it, because I was really, really worried to be able to use terrain well. On reflection, that was my fear pre-event, but post-event, the footprint of that army, because I had actually not been paying too much attention. Warriors have gone to 50 millimeter bases, and so having an army of 27 50 millimeter bases is about as hard to hide as those old Cataphren destroyer armies from AdMech. And even on tables as dense as WTC, you just can't hide all the warriors, so that they suffer, to be honest, from like shooting and things like that. And it turned out to not be as big a problem as I thought it would be.
Yeah, just apply like 7 Locust destroyers with full rerolls directly to the problem unit and see it go away.
I started calling the Locust unit my Mortine unit. It was in bug control.
Happy days. So yeah, Dineeth, so obviously being like the head coach and for the team, so was there a lot of like concerns or long restless nights leading up to some teams or some certain matchups?
I think the biggest thing on the coach side of things was like number 1, managing fatigue, number 2, managing stress and nerves. and number 3, keeping the ship afloat, keeping everyone friendly and happy and chummy. And look, quite frankly, all 3 of those things, we assisted in those things, but the team did really well in managing it. Like, we had really solid leadership from Eric. I couldn't have picked a better captain to lead the guys, and small in stature, but very, very big in personality. And all the guys looked up to him as a leader. And he was able to rally the guys, and in the tough rounds when it was like USA, England, Poland, it was a lot of talk of these guys have big names, you see them everywhere, but it's the same models, the same rules, the same armies. They're all beatable, yeah. And we were able to keep the ship on track. On the coaching side of things, managing fatigue was a big one that we tried to eliminate. Making sure players didn't need to leave their tables, making sure a few players who were needed in other parts of the pairings process, making sure their tables were set, making sure their armies were ready. Even for some players who we had to really take care of, making sure their armies were packed up so they didn't have to waste energy doing that. We really wanted to be like the pit crew, of the Formula One team. That was our goal as coaches. And if we could eliminate that allowed all the players to really play at their best. But they were kind of the hurdles that we were looking at. And honestly, the players are so amazing. They kind of just took care of the games themselves. It was great.
I mean, I kind of want to jump in there because I think Dineeth is an incredibly humble operator a lot of the time. When he uses the analogy of, the Formula One pit crew, it's not just an analogy. It's sort of the ethos they really brought to doing what they did. When you play 4-hour rounds of 40K in 35-degree heat, surrounded by people who may not speak English as their primary language, and everyone has gone there to win, it's an incredibly sweaty, in more way than one, environment. And, to put it in perspective, Dineeth is keeping track of 8 games. Every player is hydrated, but more than that, if I needed a rule looked up, he has a 50-page prep document with every FAQ for every army ready to go. Do I need to look at another army's codex? Got all the rules ready to go in my coach's pack. Dineeth and the other coaches were not just feeding us and getting water. It's more than that. They did all of the book work, all of the prep work, everything to keep the team running like a well-oiled machine, to the extent that every player could just focus on moving their models and trying to blow people up. All of the extraneous stuff that makes 40K a little bit stressful was solved by the Formula One pit crew. And I think they really set the standard for what a 40K team competing at the World Champs actually wants. I had more than one team, more than one opponent mid-game say that they were jealous of the Australian pit crew. And that wasn't just because Macmillan or McDelivery was walking around with lollies and snacks. It was because when we needed a judge, Australia was the first one to go get them. When we needed a rule looked up, before the dice is even put down, one of the Australian coaches has the folder open, ready to go. It was just always so active, so energetic, and it boosted morale so much knowing that you have a guardian angel with you to play your games. You're not alone. You're a team. And seriously, Dineeth coordinated that, and he did an awesome job.
Thank you. And look, I was just going to say, I think we'd be silly if we're going again to win. I think we'd be silly to take less than 3 coaches. I think minimum 3, ideally 4, is the standard now. And I think you'll probably, like, England had 3 or 4 as well. The USA had 3, I think. So I think we'd be silly to not take a full squad.
It's like, I was going to say, it's like playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you've got unlimited phone of friends.
Oh, 100%. Like, even though we can't impact the games, there's all this other stuff that we can just take mental pressure off the players.
Yeah, and so this was the first year you took this many coaches. So it's interesting to note, obviously, and shows the team camaraderie. You call them 4 coaches. You didn't say their assistants. I mean, call them delivery, which basically what he was. But 4 coaches. So shout out to Josh. So you guys had Wayne, you had Josh McMillan, you had Captain Redbeard, Pete Patel, and yourself, Dineeth. So you guys all worked as a unit, and that's fantastic to hear. So you guys, obviously, from the sounds of things, you guys are going to do it again next year, if not even more coaches. I think it's showing that it's very, very useful for you guys.
100%.
Yeah, fantastic. And also, for anyone listening, that's a great way to get into your team, right? Is just being a coach or assistant. I'm sure the team will be more than happy to have an assistant helping out. So I know Josh was helping set up Simon's models a couple of times, so helping those players out and getting them ready and organised. So whatever way you can do, help alleviate the stress and everything else. So guys, but you're at WTC day one. You guys had the pairings ahead of the time, so you knew who was in your pod, what was happening. How are you feeling heading in, and then like how the results pan out, and how do you guys feel afterwards, sort of thing?
Ooh. Dineeth, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, look, we definitely did not have a soft pod, that's for sure. We had Greece and Finland, who've have gone top 10 before. Finland especially is a solid solid nation that has done really well in the past. We also had Warhammer Undivided, which was like the Mercs team, with some Russian players, Polish players, Ukrainian players, who have kind of banded together as a Merc team, and they had some heavy hitters as well. We had our very own Adam Camilleri on that team as well, and we had some like big dogs like Russian Alexander Kodmakov, I think his name is, one of the best players from Eastern Europe, absolute weapon. So that was not a soft day one. I think we did pretty well in pairings though. That Greek Tau list got eaten up by Matt Jackson's Knights, and everyone else did quite well. Then round 2 against Finland, saw Liam get a bunch of Liam got a big 20. Chris and Eric get some big wins, and our scrappy lists with Jez and Soli, they and Simon as well got some really tight games to push us up. I think we were 105 to 55 against Finland. That sounds about right. And then the game against, or the round against Warhammer Undivided got hairy. We paired into a projected about 95, 100, and then we had a few games go south, and we're looking at like a 70, which was a bit sus, and then a few of the players pulled out some big wins. Eric switched on, Chris switched on, and then we got up to, was it a 95, Liam, in round 3?
I believe so. I've got
it's maybe a flat 100. I think we got 300.
160. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So day one was.
Was there some mixed delivery of information in that round of guys speed up? Were the coaches playing their part in that and managing that, or was it just like you let the games play out?
Well, it's interesting that with what the coaches can and can't do. So coaches can't advise players on what to do, but the coaches can communicate scores to players. So the coaches can say, "Hey, this person's going up. We need you to go for this score," or what are we expecting from this game? If something's gone south, you can't really cheer on your person. Let's say if I go up to let's say. Jeremy Martino, who's one of our shieldy lists, rated something as an 8, and he says, "Oh, Dineeth is going bad. I might get a 0." We can say stuff like, "Hey, just reach for 3, reach for 4, try and get that," and that'll put us in a good position. So you can kind of guide the players and give them targets on what they need, depending on how the round's going. And the opposite way, let's say Liam's kicking butt, he's expecting a 14. I say, "Hey, Liam, can you safely reach for a 16?" And then Liam will say yes or no. And if he says yes, I'm like, "Yep, do it." So that's kind of where the coaches kind of can communicate with the players, and you better believe that was done maybe 100 times around. So
yeah,
it was happening all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so at the end of the day, you won all 3 rounds, 3-0, top of the pod, happy days. And then going out from there, so you sort of knew you're in 3rd or 4th place. So one of the pairings that you knew sort of Swiss-wise that you're going to pair into Team Sweden heading to day 2. And then above you guys, you so had England, USA, and then Poland, who had a draw the previous day. So, and then France and Germany were biting on the heels. So you guys sort of knew roughly who were around that sort of stages. So what were you guys sort of preparing for? Obviously you had Sweden the next day, but then did you guys sort of prepare for like an England or USA as well and get that sort of matrices realized again? Or do you just sort of just play what you had ahead of you and just rely on the information?
You can take this, Liam.
Yeah, so the team did their best to get all of their matchups rated before the tournament, but we realized obviously that a lot of things change depending on the mission that you play the team in. So a lot of scores have to be updated and changed anyway. So we ended up doing a lot of our scores, or rather updating the scores before each round once we worked out what mission we were playing people in. Just in terms of getting ready for round 4, I want to highlight how rough the first day of the tournament was. So the first day of the tournament in the pod was 3 rounds. 3 rounds. Apologies. 3 rounds of 4 hours each of 40K, including pair time. And then you've got a lunch break in there as well. And you've got to remember the day started at about 10 a.m. It wasn't an 8 a.m. start. So the tournament day finished at about 10:30 p.m. And after that, you walk 30 minutes back to your hotel, you go get a kebab, you wait a little while for your kebab, and you still haven't done pairings for tomorrow, and it's almost midnight. Most of the players got to bed at about 12:30, 1 a.m., only to wake up at 6:45 the next morning because you have to be back at the event by 8 o'clock for a captain's meeting the next day. So in terms of getting ready for the Swedish round, it was brutal because you are exhausted. You've played 3 games of 40k, and only now do you know the mission you're going to play Sweden in. A strong team at that. And so it was really, really brutal to have to do your pairings at midnight when even the best of friends are snappy. No matter how nice you all are to each other, everyone's so tired and fatigued at this point. So, it was that was brutal going into the Swedish round.
I assume there were 3-hour rounds on the first day when you had 3 games. That's crazy.
So it's 4-hour rounds, including pairings.
Yeah.
So, and even though pairings isn't, done by everyone, it's a very active process with all the players standing around, being asked questions. Oh, which table do you need? Who do you not want to play? Stuff like that. It's a very, very grueling process intellectually. And also, you got to remember that you're standing for this entire time.
On concrete floors, right?
On very concrete floors. I mean,
Yeah.
I am not an athlete at my best, and standing for 12 hours was brutal.
Good thing that Marisol is, though, so that's good.
Yeah.
At least
Marisol
one
is
was
19 seconds, man. 19 seconds on the hunt to get it wrong. But one of the crazy things that we look back on, and look, in the second and third day, we were using the whole 30 minutes of that pairings time. Like, it was taking 30 minutes to pair. So I had a look on my phone, on the health tracker on my phone. 10 days, 160 kilometers walked in those shoes. So average 16 Ks a day of like standing around, walking to and from the venue, doing shit. And I'm not even playing. I'm just the coach. So like it was crazy what these guys were putting in physically, and getting to the end and playing high quality games is it's a big ask doing that.
Also, just a final note, you got I'm not sure what the height is, but if you looked at your average 40k table in Australia, take 20% off the height of the table. So you're just bending over that little bit extra. Your lower back is hurting that little bit more. Yeah, look, it's painful physically.
That hurts so badly. Was Eric in his element?
Oh, he loved it, mate. It was basically chest height.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like at Charity Hammer, Colin jokes about there's like the giant table because like there's a whole bunch of tall people around there. So there's like one that's really high, and then we're gonna get Anthony and Brad Chester to play on that. So they're both like, trying to reach things. This will be like the opposite. It sounds awful.
They can always stand on stools, right? I mean, simple compromise. Tall tables, short people can stand on stools. Easy, solved. Anyways, moving on. So you guys beat Sweden. You got a good win over there. So obviously tough competition despite the short process of pairings. And then you find the good old US of A. So the team that you hear all about was Artawar.inc and Brad and Sean Naden along as coaches. So what do you guys?
I've personally, not gonna lie, I've actually never heard of them. So it was good to finally meet them.
You neither, Liam? Like, you haven't even had to play them. Definitely not in like a difficult game or anything, right?
Never heard of them. Don't even know.
Might like harass you about some army being bad or something. You just ignore it.
You can take this one, Liam.
Well, the thing is, and something I touched on, both during the event and afterwards, is that no matter what you say in jest or between friends, the American team is a highly powerful team made up of not just experienced 40k players but celebrity 40k players. And something that becomes quite palpable is when you have a team of such well-known players, there is a psychological element to the game where no matter how much you back yourself, a lot of people will go into a game with somebody like Richard Ziegler. And I think there will be an element of, assuming you're going to lose. And a lot of that, even at the highest level, a lot of the game can get psychological. If things go bad, you can start to spiral mentally and whatnot. And I think that's where, in a lot of ways, I'm so proud of the Australians and the Australian attitude in general. It's not just tall poppy syndrome, it's very much like we want to rise. You want to rise and beat the people who are good players at the game, who are sort of the creme de la creme of playing 40K. And that team had a lot of big names in it. During that round, there were some incredibly stressful games and some games I'm so bloody proud of. Eric played Brad Chester. Simon played Richard Ziegler. Simon won 13-7, which is absolutely awesome. The only human being on the planet who can draw 80% of his games in a singles tournament, but beat Richard Ziegler when it matters. I don't understand how that works, but it does. Whatever. It's fine. There was a whole bunch of games during that round that made me feel so proud to be part of the Australian team because everyone tried to rise to that challenge.
Yeah, and I think that round against USA, like on the second day, we had a few players not doing so well, and they ran into some hard games against America too. But the fact that we got a draw against them, we were so close to dropping that round. We were so close to losing, right? And the fact that we got that draw kind of set a fire under us. And those players that weren't doing so well, when they went into day 3, they hit the ground running. They really fired up, just because you could see that these guys, they're not unbeatable. Not unbeatable.
Was it like a that was a close call, like, man, we need to step it up again, set a fire, or was it we've got this, we're still on the hunt, or both?
Yeah, I think it really, we were getting wins up till then and things were looking good, but that round really fired us up because we needed to win. We needed USA to lose round 6 and then we play someone for the win. That was the path to victory there, and I think everyone fired up for England. And I also think for day 3 we slept a little bit more than day 2.
Yeah, 100%.
That did help.
Hey, I'm totally unsure how technology works because I was literally born 58 years old intellectually. But I'm pretty sure Anthony just sent a message, and I just wanted to say that, yes, that was an awesome game. I had so much fun playing Anthony from Team USA because he hung out with the Australians quite a lot, had a few drinks with them beforehand. Awesome sense of humor. We had a lot of laughs during that game. It was incredibly good to play such a tense round with such an awesome attitude. It was really, really cool.
Anthony's definitely one of the more more Australian Americans I've had the pleasure of interacting with. And to explain the technology, Liam, he commented in our Discord, the best in Tabletop Network Discord, I think. And Sam's just being wonderful as ever and passing it on at the right time.
Thank you, young man.
Is he really part of Team America? I mean, that guy just bought allegiances all the way through, wearing a Scottish flag during the singles, wearing an Australian flag during when it was convenient for him, and then he lost a bet. And we need to start tattoo watch.
The bet!
Oh man,
made a bet. Sorry, for those who don't know, I call him out on it, guys. Anthony Vanilla made a bet that he has to get a Team Australia. So did he show that over the left shoulder, that Team Australia logo? Oh, left shoulder. There we go. Bingo. We got it. Team Australia tattoo on his shoulder, and he hasn't still got it. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, Anthony. Hold on.
If he hasn't got it yet, it's just got to go straight on the forehead.
When did he make the bet? What's the backstory? Because all I heard was that he realized during the prize giving, he was just the bet, and locked eyes with Morrisoli or something, and they were the same. He was the bet.
Well,
that's not even the worst bet to have lost on that weekend.
No, it's definitely not the best. Somebody's toes are far too moist after this tournament. It's very unfortunate. So, Alex, is there a video you haven't seen?
I think there is a video I haven't seen.
Let's talk about England first, and then we'll get to the video.
Sounds good.
I'm excited.
England and the video. But first, the first bet though, there was obviously on camera caught that Jack Hartford versus Matt Morrisoli in a foot race. We never found out who won that bet. Who was the fastest man? Or did it never happen?
Unfortunately, I think it never happened. I think there might have been a perception that when the Australians talk garbage, that we don't mean the garbage, but we're actually 100%. We're almost as competitive at shit talking as we are at 40K.
Your story from last EDC about the Italians and the Mario hat was too good.
It's so funny, the good sense of humor that a lot of the teams do. I mean, I think that probably more than most other teams, the Aussies talk an alarming amount of smack during pairings as well.
Oh yeah.
Like Matt had this
Solly
power
was
play
on
that he
fire.
kept doing. So Matt would wear like very sweaty shoes to the tournament, and during pairings he'd just take them off and like put them on the table and just like make eye contact with people, just being like, what are you going to do about it? And just being overall challenging to deal with. Or like, for example, when we're pairing against, I think it was Poland right at the end, they put something up like Craft Worlds, and somebody yells, just as planned, like top of their lungs. It's like, we had no idea that was going to happen. We're just like, it's just being as challenging as possible. But, in general, a lot of smack talk.
Someone needed to, like, if you knew Morrisoli was doing this on the regular, just like tee up the other team with like, here's a can of drink. Like, when Morrisoli puts the shoe on the table, you know what to do.
Yeah. The forced shoey.
There's definitely some banter that is probably not appropriate for podcast viewing.
No.
But there was some good banter.
We'll stop there.
Yeah.
If you want to listen more, just send Liam a DM. Just send him a DM, or maybe in person. He'll maybe talk some banter. But
we also made a lot of memes during the event, and we've sent some of them to these boys, and they can decide whether they're appropriate to share out. I'll leave it to you because
I think that's in Sam's department. If you want to think about this, Sam, I can definitely tangent for a bit, or do you want to get us back on track?
No, we'll get on
track. The Ralph Go Banana meme is my favorite.
We'll work it. We'll chuck it in post. It's always in post, right? Throw it in post. So yeah. So obviously end of day 2. So you guys drew against the USA. Tough round. I'm sure you were pretty happy to get away with a draw there. Obviously, we love the win, but get away from a draw was it probably a happy result. And then heading to day 3, so you knew you were playing against England. So USA had Poland, and you were going against England. And there was only going to be, because of the way draws work, there was only going to be basically, always going to be one extra round, but there was going to be like a true winner, and you sort of had to win your way through if you wanted to come out with the event. And obviously a bit of trauma of 2019, England, you were fighting for the podium, you're fighting for first, lost to England. So how was it the night before and heading into England? Like, what was it like? And I guess starting with you, Liam, having been there through NAM.
Australian bush tactics.
Okay, look, too much Agent Orange for me. I mean, wow. NAM was stressful. So look, going into the next day playing England, I mean, like Dineeth said, we got a bit more sleep this day after day 1 6 hours sleep, day 2 maybe 7 hours, so it was a luxury. But one of the things that was really, I guess, good for us to know was that we'd already done a fair bit of prep work in England, especially those guys have already been before. We've met a lot of the members of the English team. But for us, most importantly, ironically, when we did our pairings in advance, we paired quite poorly into Team England. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of paths for pairings that would result in some really, really bad games for us. But what that meant was we spent a lot of time on England. A lot of time where we practice, and by we, I don't mean me, I mean the actual people who did the hard work, like Eric and Jeremy who did pairings. They spent a lot of time getting ready for Team England before the event and even the night before the round. So when we got to the round itself, I was so proud of the Rain Man-esque effort the boys put in to get us the favourable pairings. And to answer somebody's question, no, it is not a 40k event unless you're sleep deprived and or hungover.
Yeah, that was me just typing away mid-conversation to learn and not interrupt for once. And so like when you say, because you paired not like you didn't pair well, like there were a lot of paths that could go badly, and so what the guys like did all their mock pairings and stuff and teed it and practice and what happens if we go put this down, what do we think they're going to do, all that sort of process. Yeah,
so there's a lot of bookwork, I guess, that goes into it behind the scenes. And to be honest, I'm not that great at it. There's a reason that Eric is the sort of the big brain that he is. He's the Magus of Team Australia from GSC. He's ready to go. That's Simon. Sorry, because Simon kind of looks like a Magus.
Yes,
but
definitely. Eric's more
like
the folk hero.
The Kellum. Oh, maybe the Crouchling. I don't know. I'm not sure. but yeah, so a lot of work went into that, and so it was really, really good that it paid off the way that it did. Like, we obviously did quite well.
Just a little bit.
Fantastic. And so you guys said you had a bet with Team England. What was this bet that supposedly happened with Team England?
Oh, well, the bet was actually with Poland.
Poland.
With Polish captain Tifus. But
Right.
funnily enough, the path cleared up really well because we got the win against England. Another classic, waiting on Simon to get us 2 to 3 points. Then he got us a big 10-10 against Manny Chima. And then we turned around and Duda, the Polish player, is just yelling and screaming and cheering because Poland has just beaten USA. And what that's done is it's locked in the final with Poland and Australia as the only two undefeated teams. And that was crazy. Like, we turned around and saw it and we're like, we're playing for the win. We're fucking doing it.
That's so great. Like, especially because you were saying before this, you recorded with Contact Loss before coming over here, right? We interviewed the Contact Loss guys. Like, we had a chat with them for our last episode, and we said in the thing, it's like Australia-Poland finals, let's go. And it happened.
Yeah,
That's so great.
Couldn't have scripted it any better. We didn't script it, I swear. It just happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, heading into Poland, so obviously the most decorated ETC team, and then like very, very good team. They prepare all year for the WTC, and they literally just play WTC format games, and that's all they care about. So what was it heading into Poland, and like just summarize the experience? So maybe you start with you, Liam. What was it like, and how was it?
Excuse me. I mean, the reality is it was the finals of my second event out of the country. I'd been here before, and we dropped down to fourth, playing England and Serbia last time. It was a very, very stressful experience. Probably some memories that I will probably never forget. There was a moment during pairings against Poland where we worked out very, very quickly that I was going to be playing the Necron mirror match in the last round. And Eric comes to me and grabs me by the shirt and pulls me down to Eric height and goes, like, Liam, you've put in the pairing sheet, you can get a 14 against their Necrons. What score are you going to get? I'm like, I'm going to get 14 points. And he goes, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, look, I think I can do it. I think I can get 14. And 3.5 hours later, I come back and I got 14 exactly in that round, which was that sounds scripted in hindsight. That sounds like that was scripted. Moments during pairings where Morozoli kept yelling out "just as planned" at random points during pairing, just to sort of again be challenging. It was such an intense round, but I think the really big memory for me was watching the last game tick down. And I'm going to hand over to Dineeth because Dineeth is a storyteller.
I was going to say before that, the pairing sheet for Poland looked pretty average. But we were kind of, it's more Eric and Liam talking that if there was a world where we get the Necron mirror, it clears up a lot for us. Liam, off mic, but now on mic, has been said to call the Polish Necron list the second best Necron list of the event. So, when he says that about someone else's list, it's serious. We have to wake up. So a few things happened. Their Towse was put up, played by Skark, who's an ETC WC veteran. We actually put up our Towse, or replied with our Towse and sisters. So we kind of gave them the option for the Towse mirror, and they didn't take it. They took the sisters, which was great for us because we could scrap into the Towse and kind of deny their big win. And it also showed that, we've got big dicks because we put the Towse up. And then it ended up
Aussie.
Liam, I think you were the third put up. You're the final put up.
Yeah, I was the last put up, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and they replied with the Necron mirror as kind of the same thing, and we just jumped on it. So like everything fell into place. Matt Jackson, our night player, got Drakari, partnered by Typhus, who's one of their great players, and Jackson, who had a lot of trouble in other games, brought back 14 from that. And just as a for context, to win a round, you need 86 points. Our pairings projected about 90, 95. So the pairings team kicked it out of the park. Absolutely did. And, Jackson brought back the 14. Chris Wright's game, who his Eldar paired into the Harleys, and he went down, and that threw a small spanner in the works. It pitched us at about 85, 86, so high draw, low win territory. He got back 4 points from that. Eric turned up the heat and got an 18. Liam, as planned, got a 14. So at that stage, we were looking at a high draw, and then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Matt Morrisoli, Drakari into the Knights, brings back 3 points when we were expecting a 0. And we were just like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. We're on track. We're on track for a 90. Hayden Waldock puts on an 80-point back-end Kauyon to swing a game that looks like he's losing to Nids to a 14-6 win. That happened as Soli's score went in and as Jez's 9-point score, 9-11 score against the Tau went in. All this happened within about 5 minutes. So the Polish team, looking like they're going to win or high draw, just got flipped. And you could just see the light leave their eyes as we kind of put the points on the board. And it was all down to Simon. He needed 12 points. And he had about 5 to 10 minutes to get through turn 3, 4, 5 against a nice player, and Simon's Nids had just taken the board. So it was a win. We just didn't know how big the win was because we didn't know what turn Simon would get to. And I swear that 5 or 10 minutes watching Simon's game felt like through 2 or 3 hours. We were just like, Simon, go, come on, go.
Just channel us in Eric and be like, don't be good, just be fast.
Yeah, just go full Eric. And he was so quick though. He got it all done. Yeah.
One of the things about that was so stressful to watch is the coaches and especially the players aren't allowed to interfere or communicate with the other players during their games, right? And because of the format of the WTC and because the judges were approaching this event with a really professional attitude, they were keeping really close eye on time. One of the genuine worries that I think a few people had was that if we ran out of time because of the important decisions that needed to be made, then there was a world where you could get penalized for running out of time because you didn't manage your time well. And a yellow card, to my understanding, was -10 battle points for the round.
Like, is that the 20-0 battle points or like?
Yeah, those ones.
So it takes your 90 down to an 80.
Quite literally, there was this thought process I had, being a little bit nihilistic, where I'm watching the clock that has less than 5 minutes. And it's just like, you want to just like run up and like strangle him and be like, stop rolling dice. Like just
stay there and win. Yeah.
Stop it. Just like sit on objectives. And, it's like, but you're like, I'm sitting there pacing, and it was actually Wayne Russell, one of the coaches. I did about 5 laps of the table in like a minute. It's like, honestly, like walking like I was neurotic beyond all help. And Wayne like hugs me and goes, let's go get a beer, man. And like walks me away from the table. I'm like, but I want to watch. Just, takes me away. It's just so stressful.
That moment, I think Simon had like maybe a minute or 2 left on his clock, and they're writing the scores in, and there's just when it gets calculated as an 18-2, and everyone just explodes, like just absolutely like the emotion, man. When we realize we won it, it's crazy.
Yeah. And for those who haven't seen it, there's a video on Team Australia 40K that you can watch the moment happen, and just everyone celebrated. Australia won it finally after so much years of prep and hard work, and we made it. We got over that curse. So. But obviously, congrats to you guys for doing it. That's amazing. And the whole nation was behind you. Like myself, I'll wake you up in the morning. Sadly, the final was like 3 a.m. I was waking up in the middle of the night, just checking. And when I saw it, I was like, hell yeah. So
Sam, you're one of the people messaging us and checking in. And thank you to everyone supporting us. We were doing it for everyone at home. We're doing it for everyone back home that was supporting us and staying up and supported us all the way. So it was amazing.
It means actually so much because the times were all weird. When we're waking up in the morning in Belgium, it was like the end of the workday back home because 8 hours difference, right? And so obviously everyone's on their phones like after work or in their commute home, and so you'd be getting up in the morning before rounds, and I'd have 40K friends, my wife messaging me being like good luck, and then you'd have random messages from like your dad being like, go kick some ass there. And I'm like, Dad, I know you have no idea what's going on, but thank you for these good wishes. Like, it was so nice. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. I was so tempted to like try stay up till 4 to watch the final, or no, not watch, pay some level of attention to the finals. But I'd also had a tournament that week, and so I was of course sleep deprived because you can't have a tournament without. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had some questions from Werp in the chat. So he asked, so obviously during the US, UK, and Poland, so what sort of lists from those teams sort of caused you the most stress during pairings? And then maybe during those rounds, like maybe one or two, what games sort of played out a way that surprised you? So obviously, I guess one of them would be the Chris Wright versus the Harlequin player for Poland. Like, obviously, you guys didn't go as well as you expected, but what are some other ones that maybe weren't mentioned or you didn't know that maybe didn't play out as well? And what maybe ones caused stress during the pairing process?
I think in general, Knights, Chaos Knights, and Tau were hard for us to pair into. Especially the armies or the countries like Poland who had 2 Knight lists. It was hard, mainly because table pick could have destroyed us. Especially Poland, for example, 2 Knights and Tau. Yeah, it's pretty stressful for Eric and the pairings team. I'm not going to pretend I know as much on pairings as they do, but looking at our sheets, no one really wanted the Tau. Getting a scrappy player into the Tau would be perfect to try and build up the points. Liam, I know there's a couple of factions that you didn't like in particular.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, like Dineeth said, Knights and Chaos Knights were, I think, a lot more prevalent and a lot more successful than I think, I initially thought they would be. Especially some of the Chaos Knights lists. Like, I really want to highlight Poland's Chaos Knight player. I'm very, very sorry. I don't have BCP is not working on my phone, but that fellow was
Michael Duda.
Yeah, he was one of the most excellent Knight players I've ever seen. He was doing some really, really interesting stuff where he was summoning Furies, which I've seen before, but rather than use the Furies specifically to score things like banners or rod, he was actually using the Furies to screen against melee units on objectives. So, for example, he had 2 little knights standing on an objective surrounded in a wall of Furies, so that when Matt Morozoli charged Grotesques in, he had to spend a turn killing the Furies, and the Knights player still had 10 OBSEC models on the objectives because they count as 5 models each. And even though that's such a simple concept, in terms of gameplay, that's amazing. Like that's sort of like next level, just using movement well to be effective. Really proves that the Polish team has top tier players and above, like absolutely stellar stuff.
I was going to say, that's like the whole combat RB transport sort of thing, right? Like having something OBSEC inside of a transport on an objective. It's just like, you've got to do, the sequencing needed.
You're adding layers of problems that there isn't a way for certain armies to fix, no matter how good you are. For me personally, I think somebody asked the question before, like, what lists, if you could look at it again, would you take as a team versus like what wouldn't you take? I think that's a really tough question, right? Because like we commented on Contact Lost a little bit earlier, we commented that the Australian team has a pretty unique approach to team building and list design, in that we're actually quite individualistic, in that we pick players rather than factions. So, like, for example, we pick Matt Morozoli, and Matt Morozoli is an amazing player at scrapping for points this time around. In the past, he's been a different style of player. And so we looked for the army that would enable him to do the best that he could. Same with Eric. Eric is a person who can dive on the grenade and somehow manages to eat the grenade and shit out gold. I don't know what this analogy is, but it just manages to work sometimes. And so we looked for an army that enables Eric to use his player skill to the highest level, and that happened to be GSC. I think on reflection, Drukhari struggled a lot more than we expected it to, and Knights did a lot better than we expected it to. So I think on reflection, maybe having both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights would have been awesome, and a lot of teams had that combo and it was very effective. And a lot of the Drukhari lists really struggled at the event overall. Honestly, kudos to the skill level of Matt Morozoli to do how he did in both teams and singles with Drukhari, especially the singles event doing as well as he did. It just goes to show how good he is.
Did he go on to win after you played him in the semis? Or like win his next game?
There was no next game. The
final, was it single Elam?
Final pod for singles was elimination, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dineeth.
I was going to say, it's really funny that in a number of Soli's games, he had 2 Void Raven bombers for the singles. And a number of the games, either he'd go second and the planes would just die, so he'd play 400 points down, or he'd go first, move the planes up, do what they needed to, planes killed like 3 models, died, and he'd play 400 points down. So it was pretty crazy seeing him kick ass with a 1600 point army for most of singles. But yeah, I think Solly himself was saying that Drakari may not have been the best pick, but at the end of the day, he piloted it beautifully, and he got the points in the games that he needed to. So in the lineup, it fit, it worked. But would a Chaos Knight list have been better or something else? Maybe. We didn't take Marines either. A lot of armies took Blood Angels.
Then you've got to look at your team's philosophy then, I guess, of fitting players to armies, right? Because if Solly doesn't, I don't think Chaos Knights are a like scrap for points sort of army, right? They're like a like, here, I'm going to punch you in the face really hard and try score big and bully and Perig sort of thing.
Yeah,
so that,
they're like a big fire blanket, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on how you run them, sure. Sorry, Sam.
So obviously you guys won the event, congratulations. But also along the way, you got the Best Sports Award. So obviously that's something I don't think it's been ever done before. Someone who came first also got the Best Sports Award. Took it away from Canada, you jerks. So
you got the Good Country Award.
So,
yeah. I stole that one from Adam actually at some other venture. But yeah,
that's great.
So what does it mean to you guys? Obviously, winning the Best Sports Award. What does it mean fundamentally?
It's pretty badass. Like it does show, doesn't it, that even though we played at a high level and won the event on battle points, that people did enjoy their time playing us. We found out that we play 7 teams over the course of WTC. We actually found out we had 15 sports votes. So out of 28 teams, so more than half the field liked us, even though they didn't play us, which is great. So that speaks mountains, and we're really grateful and appreciative that we were able to get that award. But on coaching side, the players are obviously playing hard. One of the things I was trying to do is walk around where I could and talk to the other coaching teams and other players and see how they're going. We were the loud, obnoxious ones that always had a UE boom playing music on the way in and out. Sometimes during pairings.
Was it exclusively? Oh, I'm blanking on the name, but the Land Down Under band.
It definitely was. Yes.
There was quite a lot of that. There was a lot of Hilltop Hoods.
There was a lot of Draft. There was a lot of Roy Jones Jr. We had to turn down the DMX. So there's a bit of DMX as well. So it's great. It was great.
Pretty cool.
Perfect. What more could you want in music? I mean, come on, that's the best hype music you could ever want. So
that's got to be the overall reason, right?
Yeah, fantastic. And so obviously, you guys are celebrating as part of the team photos. Obviously, it was something we noticed was you held up a Dan Savage jersey. So what was like Dan Savage's relation to the team? Like, why were you guys holding up a jersey for him?
Yeah, so Dan Savage was one of the 8 Australian players. Unfortunately, life happens to all of us, and fortunately for Dan, he's had a lot of important things happen in his life. Dan has a family, Dan has a business, and a few things got in the way, and he wasn't able to come to WTC. But he was an integral part of the team during the preparation phase, and he's friends of many of the members of the team. And so, when we ordered the jerseys, we wanted to make sure that he was represented. And I've got to be honest, a couple of months ago, there was, when we're sort of hyping yourself up to kind of visualize yourself on the podium, sort of stuff we were saying, when we're on the podium, we'll hold up a jersey for Dan as kind of like a hype yourself up thing. And Eric was able to deliver that promise. He visualized it and he made it happen.
Happy days. Couldn't have said it better. Amazing. So
I'm not sure Eric's the guy you want doing the holding up of a jersey of the team. That feels like a job for Solly or something. Or Solly holding Eric holding the jersey.
Layers. Just layers.
Oh, man. I know he's listening to this stuff. I hope I'm not going to get roasted for it.
No, you're all good. So, obviously, you guys won the event. And Liam, congratulations, obviously won the singles. But what was the highlight of the event? So, unfortunately, sorry, we didn't get to cover the War Master too much in detail. But Dineeth, you got to play in it and play against some European players. So, but what was a highlight of the event for you guys? Maybe starting with yourself, Dineeth. What was your favorite highlight for the thing?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of cool stuff. The biggest thing was winning it. I was at the start of that video when everyone's hugging. For the first half, I'm on the ground in a ball, inconsolably crying. I was just over the moon. you know, that was the biggest highlight. I don't know if you've seen the meme with the line of Kroot, where the guy auto wins with the Kroot.
Oh,
Have you guys
Wheels
seen
and
this?
Scooter? I love
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, so I played that French guy. He
That's
was there.
awesome.
He was
Wait, which
playing in
one was he?
singles.
The Kroot guy or the
The Kroot guy, yeah. So I played him in
Oh,
singles.
that's awesome.
Yeah, playing against the French Eldar player, Matthew Joncourt, who's ex-French captain, who's won WTC singles. That was really good. To get 6 points and not get 20 by him was also really good. And also, Liam, do you want me to talk about Soli's bet with the Polish captain Tifus?
Please do.
So before we were pairing, Soli goes, "Hey Tifus, if we win, you're gonna suck my toe." And then they shook on it, and there's a video of Soli taking his foot off, and Tifus just deep throating this toe for like 6-7 seconds.
Oh,
Anyway, it was
This is
great.
true.
It was great.
It's
They're a passionate bunch, the Polish. They keep their word.
oh man.
Jeez.
So Liam, at the
That's
start, of
powerful.
you talked about how you were visioning like you wanted to win the singles and win the WTC, and you were able to do that. But were there some other favorite highlight for yourself?
So I think I've got two, I guess, kind of like outside of game and inside of game. So outside of game, like I did my very best in the War Master GT as well. And, you know, in terms of team camaraderie, there was kind of this moment during my game with Hamey on the stream for the final where, because I was facing away from the crowd, I sort of turn around and the entire first row of people sitting are all people in Team Australia jackets, which is awesome. Like the players and the coaches all came, and also Anthony Vanilla in a Team Australia cape, which was awesome to see. Like everyone there, you know, sort of like rooting for me. It was just really wholesome to see. And you know, you win, and you know, Matt Jackson and Matt Morozoli lift you up, and there's a bit of a champagne shower. If you haven't seen that video, that was pretty intense and very smelly. Also, turns out champagne in your eyes makes it hard to blink. It gets really sticky. So that was an unexpected consequence, but that was honestly an awesome moment outside of game for me. In terms of like in game, I had this really amazing game in the round against Sweden against Rickard, who's a well-known AdMech player. I got to say, without a shadow of a doubt, Rickard is the most by-intent 40k player I've ever played in my life. He was an absolute gentleman. We traded shirts, traded dice, had a beer. Rickard doesn't drink, sorry. We had a Coke. It was honestly an amazing round. But the thing that really stuck in my mind was the Swedes have gone and mapped out each WTC deployment zone. And what they've done is they've used like CAD or something to draw line of sight vectors on every table map so you know where you can and cannot hide. So basically, Rickard plonks this down on the table. He's playing an AdMech shooting list, and he goes, if you want to hide, that is where you do it. And like basically it explained to me in the most intent way possible where I can and where I cannot hide, rule is written. And it was just awesome. Like it was just an experience I've never had before, where my opponent was like, I know exactly what you're trying to do. You can do it. And I'm going to make sure if you can do it, you do it by the rules. It was just awesome. He was such a legend.
Yeah. I flicked a photo through in the group chat. I don't know if any of you guys can see it, or Sam can bring it up, but hopefully that's like, I think that's one of them. That because I remember seeing that, and was that actually helpful to you, Liam? Because I saw that picture and I'm like, I don't know if this is useful. It's cool though.
Oh no! To be honest, it was definitely definitely useful for me. That may or may not be because I operate on a similar spectrum to most tech priests. So that may kind of be why that gels with me quite well. When I look at that, apart from seeing the rainbow, I also see where the king can live, and so I actually thought it was really, really useful. It's also useful because no matter how many coaches you have, no matter how vigilant you are to set up the terrain correctly, when you play a game, terrain gets knocked, terrain gets bumped. And so when you look at this sort of thing, you can actually see, hey, hang on a sec, you probably shouldn't be able to draw a line of sight from there. Or conversely, I probably should be able to draw a line of sight from there. And that actually this map literally eliminates error from the terrain. I don't know how else to word it. You look at this and you go, provided this is correct, which to me it appeared to be, if this is correct, I can definitively say that if I'm behind those Munitorum crates on the right-hand side of the map, you cannot see me if you are standing on the objective on the top right-hand corner of the table. Simple question. There's no way around it. And I love that.
Yeah, for sure. The yeah, like there's so much, like the engineer in me is so on board with some of that stuff, because like it's like measuring by intent with models getting bumped and stuff like that, right? Like I've designed some terrain to run an event, and like to do that sort of thing, I've got like layers that are like you can, if you're standing on the outside of the thing, you're within 1 inch of the other side of the wall, like by design of the model. And there's like a lip on the inside where you can touch this and be not within 1 inch of the wall, and other stuff like that. Because so then like, yeah, you can do that sort of thing of like, you know, this is designed so that it's this height or whatever, and like to, you know, CAD and then laser cut accuracy, it's good. And then GW goes and gives you a 2 inch fight through wall distance, and I'm sad, but yeah.
Oh, sometimes you win, you lose, but that's a great way of showing intent, and that's what 40K is about, like showing good sportsmanship and talking to your opponent. And obviously during the event, during the War Master single, so Jaime against the Salamanders French player, so I was just showing good intent. Like we didn't want to win by a death clock; they wanted to play it out properly, and what eventually he still lost, but he won the best sports award for WTC, and that's what 40K is about. So that's what all that matters. So unfortunately, we have to wrap this up, guys. But before we leave, Dineeth, Liam, maybe starting you, Dineeth, any shout outs or final mentions before we head out?
Yeah, look, thanks guys for having us on. It's always great to talk about this, and you know, I don't think it's sunk in yet for me or Liam, but every time we talk about it, it becomes a little bit more real. Thank you to Tom, Isaac, Neil, all the referees, and all the organisers of WTC. You know, without their hard work, we wouldn't have had such a great event. And I'm sure they'll do an amazing job. Yeah, if you liked the stuff we talked about, you know, we're always around on the Normal Blokes podcast. For those who want to listen to some weird Australians talk about 40K. Anything else, Liam?
I already made this joke once today, Dineeth, so I'm sorry, I'm definitely going to recycle it. But my last shout out is I wanted to shout out to my wife for two things. First of all, not for divorcing me while I spent a large amount of time after our wedding this year preparing for WTC, but also because when I landed back in the country after 32 hours of traveling home, she's waiting at the airport with a large balloon that says champ. Hang on, it's actually right there. Which was absolutely awesome to come home to. It was just so awesome. It was really embarrassing, but also really heartwarming to see when we got home.
It's like those sports teams getting off the plane and there's everyone there to cheer it on, but it's just like
Little
one
Australia
like,
flag,
with the
like,
balloon.
Yeah.
You're a mini
I
celebrity,
definitely.
Matt.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely want to shout out to anyone listening. Like the Normal Blokes, like it is an amazing podcast. You guys are great. Like I've listened to everything since like your last ETC or beforehand and all that, so definitely worth doing.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah.
And links for the podcast will be down in the description below, including their socials. So if you guys want to follow them, really greatly appreciate it. So, and if you want to hear more about from Dineeth and all of Team Australia, follow the Team Australia page, and also they'll be on Contact Lost from the sounds of things. And I'm sure there'll be a Normal Blokes episode all about it. Until next time, back to regular viewing. Thanks everyone. Have a good one. All right, welcome back. Thank you again to Liam and Dineeth from the Normal Blokes for chatting all things WTC and all the prep work heading into it. So a lot of work. I mean, a 55-page document breaking down lists at minimum, a lot.
Yeah, I questioned Dineeth's definition of cheat sheet. Like, that feels like cheat, like binder or cheat ream, like the full thing of paper. Sheet's like one thing, dude. But yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's close enough. I mean, if you study both do your doctorates, surely like a sheet is a bit more than your regular A4 size paper. I'm sure their study notes are pretty in depth. So, but anyways, if you guys want to hear more content, so those guys have like everything WTC and Team Australia have just gone absolutely insane. So the Normal Blokes have released a recent podcast. So Luke was interviewing Eric and Liam about how things WTC Team Australia went. Contact Lost, the Polish boys. So shout out to Tomek and Joker, who did a podcast interviewing Liam and Dineeth about how those guys went, and also just recently did an interview with Adam Camilleri. So talking about the Merc side of things. So Adam Camilleri joined the Warhammer Undivided team and hearing about all his experiences. And then also we got Arbor Down Under, who just really interviewed the top three. So Germany, Poland, Australia. So interviewing some people from those countries and how they went into the event and like some of the philosophy and pairing process behind it. And then last but not least, a very local one, so down under 40k. I was doing an interview with Eric and Jeremy Martino, so should be talking about all the pairings process and how Australia approaches it all. So if you guys want to hear any of that, just in the comments down below, there'll be links in the description. So yeah, if you guys want to hear more about that.
You missed one in there, Sam, because Contact Lost have also got an interview with Jaime Paris. That might only be on the YouTube rather than the what are they called, podcast feeds. But yeah, so those guys have just been like going crazy because the two hosts, Tweak and Joker, are like in different continents or something, so they can't sync their times up. So they're just going like, well, you interview this person, you interview this one. So they're like smashing out content. We had them on. They're a great laugh. We've chatted a little bit in like the organizing messenger chat, and it's been great. Yeah, obviously Normal Blokes and all the other stuff that Sam mentioned. Yeah, I just threw something anyway.
Oh, great, Towse. Great work. So we have a comment in the chat. So other than Australia, who was the big shock win loser from the tournament? So referring to the WTC. What do you think, Towse? Who was the big shock win loser?
Hang on. So I honestly didn't pay masses of attention. Some of the few things I got was so obviously Aussie won. It was the Aussie Poland final. Then US and UK were the next two, maybe not in that order. Is that about right?
So Aussie, Poland, Germany, US, England.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I've heard like Canada did quite well, like or better than expected, maybe like sort of punched up a bit, because they were in 9th, I think.
You are correct. Yeah, the 9th was the best ever performance to date.
I have, yes, that's awesome. I have mixed feelings about Scotland's lackluster performance because on the one hand, like, haha, Ennis didn't do well, but also, oh, Chris didn't do well. So that's about what I've got from stuff. I have no useful insight to that because I got hyped that the Aussies won, and that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, what else happens? I'll just be the stereotypical American right here. Obviously, shout out to American pals; they're all the best. But who else cares about other than Australia, right? Like, trash. No.
Yeah. Honestly, like, can we just say Aussies are the biggest winner for like smashing it with the best sports score while winning best singles and best team? Because so if people haven't picked this up, and I think Liam said it on probably like 4 different podcasts at this point, but so the Aussies won best. So Liam won best at the singles, right? He won that, and Morrisoli came 3rd, only losing to Liam, another Aussie. The Aussie, so they win overall. And they got damn near half of the teams to vote for them for best sport, right? So like this is of the teams at the event. They played only 7 of them, right? So they had almost twice as many teams vote for them as they played. Like they were such a good influence around the whole event that everyone's like, yeah, those guys, we didn't play them, but man, they were funny. Yeah.
So there's some hilarious stories, and so also Chris Haynes, so of Can Hammer fame. So Can Hammer did their own talk show about how Team Canada did. So Jeremy Atkinson, so Curie, Nick, and Francois. So shout out to Francois. He just won his first ever large GT. So he won the Capital City Bloodbath. So congrats to him. And then Chris Haynes. They talked about WTC Canada, and so my understanding is actually they found that they tied on sportsmanship was Canada and Australia, but then Australia won on battle points is what Chris Haynes explained it as. So, but either way, that's still incredible, and that's the first time I think we know of where someone's won best sport and got first overall, which is normally never heard of. So, congrats to those boys.
I think what happened is like they tied, and the Canadians were just like, oh, sorry about that. You guys clearly should have won.
Sorry about
also,
that.
yeah. Thanks for like making it an even less subtle joke there. Oh, Nurglebat's in the chat. I have got an answer for the biggest loser of WTC, and I'm gonna forget who. I'm blanking on who it was. I think it was Typhus, right? The Polish captain. Whoever had to suck Morrisoli's big toe. There was a bet made, and yes, Morrisoli's athletic, just like pristine condition big toe was enjoyed by a member of the Polish team after some sort of bet. Oh, and let's say Anthony is the biggest winner because he also there was a bet where he now needs to get a Team Australia tattoo, anyone that has reason to contact them, get in Nathan's DMs and ask if Anthony's got the tattoo yet. That is the correct procedure.
It's at least been like 4 weeks since, and he still hasn't got a tattoo. Absolute scum. No, he's a good lad. So, but yeah,
man.
to answer the question, I think because it was obviously Team England won the WTC event last year, and I think obviously they came 5th, so which is still reasonable. I feel like it's just a bit disappointing. Like the 2 losses were pretty big, so they scored 57 and 65, and I want to say they lost to Australia and Poland, and they're relatively big-ish losses. So I don't know. I think it's been a bit harsh to say the biggest losers because they still performed top 5. I think biggest winners. I was pretty happy with Netherlands. Like Netherlands, I think they obviously historically performed relatively well, but I thought heading into the event they attended 4 nations, and there was like some other team tournament in UK, and they built it up, and I thought they did very well, and I was very excited to see how they did during the event. So I knew a lot of people sort of didn't rate them as well, and I just want to say, yeah, they did much like top 8, number 8. So congrats to them, and obviously Canada getting their best ever performance, and they absolutely put so much work over the lockdown with TTS scrims against Poland, Germany, Northern Ireland, and Wales and stuff like that. So they put in so much work, and it just shows that the proof is in the pudding, and like a lot of hard work and dedication gets you places. And arguably, without some of the better or well-known players in Canada being Alex McDougall and Dustin Henshaw. So yeah, I mean, congrats to Canada, and they'll be a force to be reckoned with for many, many future years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So are we? What do we actually? Have we skipped a step in our plan here, Sam? I'm lost and confused. We've been doing
No, we're
chat
all good.
stuff. Is
So,
that okay? Cool.
Now's your time to shine, Mr. Towse.
Now's my time. Are we yarning about Donkeycon?
So this weekend or so ago, you attended Donkeycon. So a 1,000 point doubles event. What the hell is this shenanigans? So
okay,
and with a fun name. So please tell us more.
Have you got all the photos that I actually took for once?
I've got some photos about Donkeycon. So from the Mr. Event Organizer.
I put like a whole bunch of them in the group chat. Have you just ignored that as well as the fact that my event's coming up?
I've got some of you. So just go tell the story.
Okay.
Tell the story.
No, but I gotta call you out on it first. So anyway, Donkeycon is run by the always lovely. Why am I blanking on his name? Always lovely Chris. I really hope I haven't blanked. Anyway, Tio's a great guy. I am not a great person for forgetting, and he basically every year runs some sort of nonsense event. It is a great laugh. Show up with like the right, just some sort of semblance of a list, and you get a bonus donkey that you need to create and convert, or get bonus points for converting. It is a whole lot of fun. And so this year the idea was it was mixed doubles. So for the first, so you bring along 1,000 points, and you get a random teammate on the first round and 2 random opponents. And then from then on, there is a pairings system, which I do in air quotes because it was done with an Excel spreadsheet and hopes and dreams, because like there's not pairing software to do this, where basically the top performers get paired up with the bottom performers, and then like sort of it runs down in some semblance of a plan like that. So the idea is like, it should be sort of even, and you can have people help coach people through and that sort of thing, which I think largely worked pretty well. I definitely had a good time myself. Yeah, I had some good comments, people coming up saying they enjoyed things. It led to some really, really entertaining scenarios for us locally, because there was what looked like a top table with 4 sort of top quarter-ish players of any given event's field. We're all playing at the same table, and you look over and go, oh, this must be top table. Then you click in your head, hang on, this pairing system is like you get the top players with the bottom players against top players with bottom players. And if there's 4 of these people here, basically a couple of guys were doing their submarine pilot's license, and they were chasing after some deep thoughts with the deep. So that was funny. There was anything else relevant to remember? I returned the toilet seat. That is the perpetual trophy for the event. Complete with zip ties to patch it together, applied overnight. And I got my name on it for the 3rd time, so I came in 3rd. My buddy John came 1st, so he was first 2-time winner. And I'm being a terrible person and blanking on who came in 2nd. a lot of stuff's happened. All right, I'm going to use that as an excuse. So yeah, it was a great laugh. And slightly more relevantly, on the same weekend, there was. Is now an okay time to transition, Sam?
Absolutely.
All right. So there was some hilarious painted armies at the thing as well. Like there was I am Groot. Oh, because everyone had to have a war name. So that was funny. So like you had sort of a pseudonym to be at the event. There was I am Groot, which is a tower army where everything was Groot, and the objective markers were like sushi rolls. That was one of my favorite things that was there. I just want to shout that out specifically. So like the battle suits had like Groot piloting them, and you can see the heads. So yeah, at the same weekend though, there was Lakes of Blood, I think, which is held in am I going to blank? I have it somewhere open in a tab. But anyway, it is an event in the North Island. There are a whole bunch run sort of by the Kraken lads, I think. It was at minimum, they provided the terrain, so nice solid terrain. And it was held in Rotorua in the North Island of New Zealand. So it was a 40-player event, I believe, with 5 rounds. I'm not quite sure who the winner overall is coming out on DUP, slightly different to who I expected. But yeah, Sam, do you have anything to confirm this, or are you able to just like fill for a little bit while I try and like double check?
Yeah, that's fine. So I have the winner being. Oh, I guess it depends. So I had Liam Herbert being the winner, but so event a couple of weeks ago, it was a relatively large event in New Zealand. So I had 40 people, which is fantastic. So I had actually it might be something different, but anyways, I had Liam Herbert being the winner overall with the most battle points and wins per se.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so 5-round competitive event. It was pretty cool, and yeah, we saw in that like a lot of similar, basically like what is shaping up to be meta lists and factions performing sort of how you would expect. So, yeah. When's Ben showing up, Sam? We're struggling here.
No, he's fine. He's fine. We're all good. So we had a question in the chat. So Aiden asked, so regarding Donkeycon, would it be possible to get the rules of this event? I'd love to play it in Tasmania.
Wait, hang on, someone's asking for the rules for Donkeycon.
Cool. Who would want to play Donkeycon?
Okay, so if someone wants to play this, I genuinely think it was just the spreadsheet. So the TO like tried to make it up as best as possible. So everyone had like a donkey sensei was what it was called. There were 4 rounds for the event because there was heaps of time between rounds, which made it really fun and really chill. So that there was a bunch of time for okay, there's 4 armies to go through, and you got to work out all the nonsense and all that. So there was the air donkey, earth, fire, and water donkeys. So like the avatar elements. And so you got to choose one of them every round. And theme of the tournament, I roll to randomly decide it every round. And so there was like a custom secondary of that was you get up to 20 points, which involved like killing opposition donkeys, bonus points with doing it with your donkeys. That's basically it. Then you chose one of your own secondary from literally any book in the game, which was really funny. So there was like to the last or while we stand we fight as options. So the character or the model or the anyway, Chris did not care the TO. It was like, do what you want. Stop asking me questions. Then the other thing that was a really nice touch was that you also got 10 secondary points for whatever your opponent scored on their secondary. So it was sort of like everyone from the game walked away with their own score, but you were incentivized to try and help your opponent achieve their secondary. So that was cool. And yeah, after that, it was just like everyone's got a score. Highest scores up the top, lowest scores at the bottom, some sort of like pairing system to like approximately have even scores and then match accordingly. That's the gist of how the thing went. I don't think there was actually much more in the way of rules than that. If you wanted to do the mixed doubles, I assume. Hopefully that helps, Aiden. Yeah, and so players pack does sound like it would be helpful, but yeah, the event's definitely about like come along and have a laugh more so than the typical GT thing. So it's really great for if that's what you want. I got called out by one of the the local I lovingly dub Old Man Dan, who, because I was saying my event was going to be a nice contrast, being just straight GT as expected, and get called out saying, "What does that mean, Towse?" Which I managed to cover. I said I wouldn't be able to compete with Chris for all the shenanigans.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful person saying, I have slow building army of Imperial Guard built around Thomas the Tank Engine. So, I mean, it sounds like Thomas the Chad Engine, if you ask me. I mean, that sounds amazing.
What you need to do for that is you need to have it be Trader Guard, and you play it with a Khorne Lord of Skulls, and you put the Thomas the Tank Engine head on where the cannon is for the Lord of Skulls.
Fantastic.
I asked local commission painter who was doing at least one of these for my buddy how much he would want to glue on a Thomas the Tank Engine thing on the front and paint it blue, and he said too much. But I was tempted to spend a bit of money to troll a friend.
Hey, what more could you possibly want to do with that? Buy groceries? Nah. Buy good supplies? Nah. Trolley moment with a little toy soldier? Absolutely. So, absolutely. Guys, we got to the point of the show where we got taking questions from the audience. So we would be remiss to say, obviously, Mr. Towse this weekend is hosting his first ever tournament. And along those lines, we have a person in chat asking, Towse, have you had any sticky questions to rule as a TO just yet?
I don't think so. I have been pretty she'll be right in my attitude towards this thing. I think one of the few questions I've had is, because of my player spec, I put a thing about proxies versus and WYSIWYG and something, but I didn't really have a conversions policy. So my buddy who's just converted Lovely Abaddon out of the Slaanesh Sigvold or something, the dude from Age of Sigmar that's the Prince of Slaanesh, to run as Abaddon specifically with his Emperor's Children. He's like, Rainbow Man okay? And sends a photo. And so, yeah, that was all right. I think that's maybe the trickiest question I've had to deal with. Or something about Yannari secondaries. I've had a couple of minor things. But, Sam's going to pull up the photo. There we go. Couple of minor ones. Nothing too difficult yet. I am hoping it should be relatively chill. I have managed to get even numbers. I believe everyone should have paid. I've almost got everyone's list submitted. I've made trophies and all that. Yeah. Sam, are there more questions?
Didn't you say that someone wanted to play over the 2,000 points limit for fun?
True. Yeah. The same dude who's Lord of Skulls I was trying to get converted sends me a message and say, hey, can I... No, first it was am I able to ignore the stupid 1 CP tax? Ben's here. Anyway, the 1 CP tax for relic things from Forge World. He wanted to get a pass on that so he could run Abaddon in a Supreme Command, a Falchion or Fellblade or one of them, and 2 Lords of Skulls, I think was what he asked to run. And I was deeply tempted to do something dumb for this. And then he sends another question saying instead, but what about instead if I go 25 points over and send some other 2 super heavy, 1 something else list? To which I was like, all right, this is not memes anymore. How about you just come up with a legal list? So yeah, that's those I think are some of my difficult questions thus far.
Yeah, it sounds like I can't remember the name of the Comedy Central show, but where the points don't care and the questions don't matter.
Oh, yeah, the points don't care and the questions are made up.
Yeah, that's the
best
one.
Thing I had that was best thing I had was my year 11 French teacher who would have these group games to get us all the groups to do something anyway, and he would get the colored markers out and make a big deal of there's colored points, so they're worth different amounts, and the whole class is trying to work out what everything's worth. It was just making up the numbers, the final scores at the end himself. Yeah, all right, that's my tangent for now. Ben, how you doing, mate? What have you been up to?
Mate. I've had a busy night, mate. I've been watching my daughter perform in a showcase. It was
it a filibuster contest?
Was it what?
Was it a filibuster contest?
I don't even know what that is.
It's where the American politicians it was a witty joke, Ben. It's where they stand and talk for ages to delay the floor. So
I just derailed your jokes for ignorance. That's just the way I like it. Just the way I like it. What the hell is happening in New Zealand that you've got people trying to go 25 points over? What's running through their brain at that point? Oh,
Well,
unbelievable.
look, his buddy's got triple Storm Surge submitted, all right? So, like, he wanted to run triple Super Heavies, but he's got the
Fair
4-2
enough.
ones that have the tax. That's basically what was going through the head there.
Yeah.
Also, I can definitely recommend, it might not be sustainable, but our local, we've had amusing comments from a treasurer chasing people up for like, hey, what was this payment for? And since I can mostly work out who's going and the payments, I basically put instructions on the players pack to, if you feel like it, put something funny in your like in your payment description for the event. And so that was, to me, that was really quite funny. There were some pretty good ones in that.
Tim knows.
Yeah.
But fantastic. So Benny Warriors joined us. So anyway, after your claim to fame, you've hit the highlights. You've joined the FLG network and appeared on a star-studded show,
True.
and then you've come down to the depths of us. How have you been, buddy? What's been happening?
I feel like I'm back at home, lads. That's what it's all about.
Okay, so what happened is he got on Grim After Dark, right? But he really wanted to be on Mob Rule, so he's just like, right, we're gonna dive down. He's landed like back in our show in between, trying to go all his way down to Mob Rules.
But look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was gonna make the joke, and it just totally lost my mind when they started bringing the memes out, and I was like, oh, here it is. And then, then we started rolling through, and all of a sudden it was the end of the show. So it was amazing. So it was, it was great. I can't complain. It was great for the lads to have me on. I mean, Mob Rules would have been way better. Like, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But I was happy to contribute to ruining Casserole Night, basically.
You would have been able to give the correct Aussie greeting as dubbed by one Matthew Morozoli, right?
Oh,
if it were on Mob Rules, it doesn't fly on.
Yeah, exactly. I could have done that.
Yeah. Man, so Sam's got to keep up. What show are you going to bandwagon onto, Sam?
All of them. Just all of them. But why would we go anywhere else? Why not stay here at the best show on the network? We'll claim it. We'll not buy.
That's right. Agreed.
But yeah, so we have some questions submitted from the Discord before. So we have Tim, the sorcerer, the man, the myth, the legend. At least something we couldn't answer during the Liam and Dineeth interview. But should Australia take some inspiration from Poland and amend our singles tournament formats to better produce WTC trained players, e.g., use WTC terrain and differential scoring? And also chuck this over to you, Towse, and I guess we can answer for the wider meta. Do you think maybe this is something we should look into more and maybe address or implement more fundamentally?
I actually got a joke answer that's pretty good and an actual answer that's hopefully reasonable. So, no, Aussies are fine. Just like lock your list in for singles, 3 minutes before it's due. Go and like win that with 4 terrible Ghost Arcs. And then go ahead and win the event anyway. You don't need just practice with a bad list at the War Master. That's your WTC practice sorted, and then go and win the thing. Like, I don't know. Obviously, if the Australians are able to win WTC, right, then they could get up a little bit. But obviously, what they're doing is working pretty well if they're to win. As far as wider meta, well, my event, I've based my terrain designs somewhat on WTC stuff and like vaguely on their layouts. So, I mean, there's something to be said for going for that.
Benny, what do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think we should try and amend our singles to maybe be more differential scoring and maybe use more WTC based terrain? So for the most part, like a comment, so we sort of use some like not player place terrain, apologies, TO place terrain. So we use a bunch of terrain and then we use some Uprising Adelaide stuff, which is kind of a blend between the UK tournament circuit and sort of Adam Napier's own creation, which is a bit more like U-shaped ruins and a bit of GW-esque in a sense. So what do you think maybe we should go more WTC terrain and use differential?
Well, let's talk about terrain first, right? Because you could really get in deep with this. I might put a Towse on this. But so with terrain, I feel like it is you're pushing it. I think like it's the problem is the WC terrain works really well when you play a map, right? And you play teams and stuff like that because you've got the gradients there, and it's not so much. But it used to be back in before Ninth, all the gradients was in like light, medium, and heavy, and now it's more like what keywords you have on the table. It seems to take more precedence. And I feel like in singles, unless you had special maps, because I know the WTC used Wayland-Yutani maps, right, which aren't the same maps, are they? Do you know what I mean? So they're not the same team maps. They're made by the same people, but they're separate maps for singles. Like you couldn't use those WTC maps for singles, I don't think. I think it would create way too much skew, even if you had every table the same. I feel like some of the terrain rules are really different when you get into the intricacies of the game, like as expressed by Liam talking. I was talking to Eric the other day, and he said that about putting the where you put your models and stuff like that. And Liam was talking about when he played on one of the many podcasts he's been on already about when he places his models ready to shoot. So you kind of get to like stick in the middle. But I just think it's a lot different. And I think that I think you'd need to use the Wayland-Yutanis maybe or something like that. I don't think it's great. I don't think the team maps are great. I think the terrain style is fine, but there's a lot of terrain for a TO to create there. Like on a WTC table, there is a lot of terrain. Like at least with like at the stuff that we use generally, that you don't need quite as much because they're bigger, and because the WTC table isn't in the strength of the size of the ruins. It's about how many and at what angle they're put at, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, I'm done with terrain.
I can definitely confirm, Ben, there is a lot of terrain to make.
There is so much terrain, man. Like I've done it. Like it's just we've done it. Like it's just nuts. So, but I think the differential thing, I think it actually would shape the way people would make their lists a lot differently because basically what you're doing is making a draw even more common, right? So you're making 10-10s like super common. And then those points will make a difference and stuff like that. Like just 11 nines make a difference. Like you saw people go like Liam Hackett lost the game and still won. Do you know what I mean? So like I think that's not right. That's not right. I think I like the separation between the two personally. So
yeah, I think it's an interesting question. So I'll just do a little bit of a tangent, like a Towse special tangent. So friends of the network, so best in tabletop TNG, so the next generation. So Tyler, Lucas, and Noj, they talked about actually training on their most recent episode. Talked about the pros and cons of each style, being GW layout, play place terrain, TO place, being like just whatever you have around, and they sort of orientate it as necessary. So if you guys want to hear more about that, definitely check them out. Great show. From some West Coast US players, sort of understanding what their views on things are. So, but with and I think Ben Wise nailed it on the head. As a TO, like WTC train is a lot. It is an absolute lot to invest in. And as sad as it is, like on the horizon, there may be 10th edition, and we have no idea what the game's going to be played out. It's going to be a real shame. Like, I don't think they're going to do this. I don't think it's in the benefit of Wayland-Yutani, who do sort of the WTC maps and those WTC singles, and as well as other providers to sort of have this amount of terrain for this edition, and then at 10th edition just scrap it all and restart again for a new game. And
yeah, so I'd love to add on to that, please, Sam, just really quickly. Is we made about 15 tables of the old style WTC terrain, and then they changed the whole lot. We painted it up and everything, and then we had to do a whole new kit. So
yeah, it's really hard. Like, it's a real shame when you spend all that time, money, and effort into painting something up, and is basically almost useless. It's a real shame. Like, it's not useless. Like, you can still use it for casual games and stuff like that, and donate to someone in good need. But for like, if you want to practice on it, it's very hard. So, but I think to answer the question, I think it depends on what your aspirations are. Like, what do you want your community to build on? Like, what is your focus? Is it to be like Poland and focus all year round on the WTC, and that's all that matters? Or is it maybe focus on singles, heading to maybe some like LVO sort of equivalent event? Or is it to prepare? Obviously, in Australia, we've got Uprising Adelaide, and we would be wrong to prepare for that using that sort of train style. So it's a hard question to answer. It just depends on your local community. I think when Tim asked about differential scoring, that's a question I've been asking myself locally. So we have some small RTT events, and like one good way to sort of differentiate, I guess, quote unquote, the better players from the worst is maybe that differential scoring and saying how high you score up. Because yes, you can score a win, but like a 99 to a 90 point or 99 to 90 point win maybe is not as good as like a 99 to a 40 point win. But the question is, like, how on your there's a multitude of answers. Like, does that create some feels bads? Because like an RTT, this is sometimes someone's first beginner event. I don't think you want someone at the first time event just getting absolutely pump stopped because someone wants to get that 20-0 win. And so it's hard. I think for some events, sure, like where it gets to a certain level, using that differential as like a factor of a sort of ranking system or scaling is probably pretty useful, but it's tough.
Yeah, so just going off back of what you just said, Sam, like as well, when you're saying about people just going for the turbo hundreds, right? They're just like going nuts for them. And that's almost like when you get really like in Australia, sometimes you can get 5-round events, which are like 80 to 90 players, right? And the only way you win those 80 to 90 player 5-round events is by getting hundreds. Do you know what I mean? So people, the top players, and I've like, they bring lists which just steamroll, like alpha and steamroll a little bit, or even if it's just on the scoreboard, it doesn't have to be like damage wise. And they just score all their points and just get hundreds. And that's how they win. That's how they got to win it. You can't be going scoring like 89s, 80 or like 85s and stuff like that if you want to win a 5 rounds 80-person event.
I mean, this is like the UK tournament circuit for a while had the events like that where they were like 5-round massive people and they cut to a top 4 after like round 3 or something about like that. Maybe it was round 4. And so everyone was just like, yeah, if you didn't score like 100s in all your games, right, you're just like, oh, good luck.
Yeah.
You've got a lottery to try get into whenever the top cut was. And I think they've sorted it now.
I think the differential just makes that environment, and there was a lot of horror stories from that, and it was 5 rounds, Towse. So it was 8 rounds, but they cut after 5, right? But this 5 rounds out of like, wasn't it like 200 people or 200
something
plus people?
like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 200 people. You've got to get like what was it, a top 16 or 32 or something like that. That's like a lot of.
I think you can have like.
That's not many people from like 200, is it?
Yeah. Also, yeah, like, thanks guys. It's real reassuring as I've just made like all of my WTC based stuff that you're like, yeah, I don't know about WTC ruins. It's real fun sitting over here.
You'll be fine. You can use it whenever you want. Like, it's always good fun.
I know, mate.
You can always use it in multiple ways. So, I guess a follow-on question is maybe is the answer to just run more team events. So
it is.
I think locally in Australia, at least in my region, like people are pretty happy with team events. They enjoy that format, and to develop those WTC trained players or the team event trained players, yeah, I think we would be silly not to. That appetite is growing and people are loving it, and it sort of balances the meta in itself. Like we've talked about team events for ages, so we're not going to go deep dive into it. But if it's an unhealthy meta, like when one codex is absolutely overpowered and crushing, at least you can adjust for it in team events. There's only one of them, right? There's only one of them you have to prepare for. Whereas in a singles event, if you lose to it, you're out of luck. Or if you don't play it, you sort of sometimes can lose. So I think it is a good answer to it. And I think there'll be more and more appearing, both in the Australia, New Zealand region, and maybe definitely elsewhere in the world for sure.
Yeah, maybe also just like shorten round times. You don't need to be good, just be fast or something like that. That's the story of the captain or something, right? Yeah. I'm just third hand using this joke at this point. I don't know how it works.
Just make them 1,000-point games. Just 1,000 points. Best of 3.
Yep.
Do we have chaos? Anyways, so this weekend, gentlemen, the Demon Codex is finally coming out. Like after 5 weeks of GW releasing it, saying it's on the horizon, and teasing us, we have it out this weekend. So heading over to Benny Way first. What are you most looking forward to in this next Demon Codex?
There's going to be piles of salt about this save. Like it's already there, and people haven't even played against it yet. Like the community's going nuts. But I am actually looking forward to maybe potentially looking at my demons. I have dug a few out actually, having a look around, seeing what I've got. But yeah, I'm ready to like get a bit of a, like the meta's like really balanced and stuff at the moment. It's really fun to play, but give me some of that Demon Codex shake up. I don't think I'm looking forward to anything particularly in the book, apart from maybe some sort of crazy psychic game, and just a different style demon army. But I think I'm mainly looking forward to the shake up it's going to give, because I don't know if it's going to be. No, there's not been any leaks. It's like they've all just turned off, right? All the leaks. So I don't know if they're going to be like overpowered, or or if they're just going to like slot right in like CSM did. You know what I mean? And they're strong, right? But they're not like breaking the meta. Like that's what it should be like. So hopefully they do that again. And it just slots in and creates another problem for everyone, because that's what's so good. There's so many problems, you can't deal with them all, right? So.
What about you, Towse? What are you looking forward to in this next Demon Codex?
I don't know. It'd be cool to see like corn demons actually be neat. That feel like maybe see bloodthirsters on the table and be like, oh, uh-oh, rather than just like, hey, cool, someone's wasted points. Like to me, it feels like I feel like you'd struggle to find people that are upset if corn demons became good, but I'm not sure. I don't even know if we're gonna like locally. I'm gonna see that many of them. So yeah. I look
Most
forward
people
to
haven't seen that in their lifetime, mate. That's why you don't even know. No one's
seeing
even
what
experienced
demons.
it. Yeah, like black corn demons be good. They haven't been good
Yeah.
for forever, have they?
Not even
I don't know.
Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy Battle 8th edition, right? Were they even good then? I don't know. I just knew Chaos Demons were very good in Warhammer Fantasy Battle for a little while. But yeah,
have you got demons, Sam?
I don't yet. Maybe in the future.
Hey, here he is. Love it. That's what I was waiting for.
There's the yet.
You just stole the joke off me.
I do have, funnily enough, Be'lakor. I have Be'lakor. The model's just too beautiful not to own, and I have some Age of Sigmar corn stuff. So I have a Bloodthirster and I have some corn bloodletters. 3 skull crush. 3 skull crushes. 9 skull crushes, which are the cavalry dudes. Or and then I've got 3 skull cannons, funnily enough, which can operate. Yeah, I do. So
of all the units you'd have, you've got 3 max skull cannons.
Of course. Why don't you? Just got to prepare. You got to pre-meta.
So I reckon I've got 30 bloodletters, about 120 plague bearers, probably about 80 to 100 pink horrors. I've got no blues because I sold them. I've got no Slanesh at all. I've got some Seekers. I've got a couple of Seekers, and I've got the that instrument one. I like the harp one, the flesh harp one.
Oh,
it's just a sick model. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, I've got that one. So I've got a few little things, but I've got like a heap of stuff that I never got round to building, which is just been sitting in the garage, just like in the tub. I was like, oh, we've got some stuff in there. A couple of start collectings. So that's good.
I have 6 Furies.
That's still not bad because they're not even that easy to get.
I'm pretty sure I got them for last year's Donkeycon.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
got them for some nonsense.
Just in time. But yeah, I'm excited. I'll be looking forward to see the Doomings Codex, because not since the start of 9th, where they had the Keeper Spam rush and the Slanesh rush, where we really see demons around. I know, obviously, in your local meta, Ben, you had the lovely George, who played Slanesh all the way a little bit, and some places of the world still plays Slanesh for whatever reason.
He still plays it. He goes nuts.
Yeah. So it would be nice to have demons have that time in the sun, right? They've waited a long time, and same with guards. So it'd be nice to see when they come out. And I'm excited to see the diversity and sort of that little soupiness, because it's almost like 4 factions in one, right?
Yeah,
and like see how all the towers interact. So I'm excited to see how that all happens. But I guess we'll have to wait and see when the previews come out this weekend.
Yeah.
So, but also talking about previews, and we sort of had a little hint in the chat. So Nova Open. So Nova Open in the USA is happening just over a week from now. And there's going to be a big GW reveal, as it sort of is. What are some big hype? What are some big expectations we could probably expect? Maybe starting with you, Towse, if you have any speculations or hints. We have Aiden in the chat talking about hoping his beloved Guard Codex comes out before the Leagues of Votan.
I don't know. Yeah, I would have just had the boring and uninventive guess of squats, something squat related. But yeah, they could preview guard somethings. I don't have good answers. I don't know. I have given that like there's so many delays for stuff to get to New Zealand, it's just like everything's fake until it actually like immediately is here. Because Demon's Codex is out next weekend. Oh, okay, cool. Well, it's not gonna. I wonder if we'll get any. Is usually where I'm at. So I am not the person to like worry about rumors, channels, and chase all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I guess we'll see. I expect. I've heard some ramblings in the warp. I've heard that Voten may come out before Guard, which is a bit rough.
Yes,
I
yes, I was going to say that. I would love that massive troll. That would be like the best thing GW could do. Like that would just make me. I'd like belly laugh. I reckon. Like hands on. Whoa, I just love that. That'd be so good.
And then they have Guard drop, right? And then immediately it's like, all right, boom, 10th indexes.
White Dwarf
Guard
for
gets a
Guard.
codex for 5 years and then 5 weeks. Oh.
And then maybe.
Hang on. They
Nice.
can reveal Marines 2.0.
There we go. Maybe we'll have to wait and see.
We keep forgetting there's all those supplements that have got to come out, right?
Yeah. Maybe Angron. Maybe Angron gets finally officially revealed.
Yes. That's what I want.
Loyalist Primarch, maybe.
Oh, I'd love them to bring the I'd love them to bring the Lion back, or even Khan, or anyone. But I think I would love. I don't think it's very likely, but I'd love them to talk about the old world, and what that has to bring. Maybe just a bit more snippet interview information about that would be cool.
Old mate Val from the Frontline game, FLG Network he's corrupted you, Ben. The Warhammer Fantasy chat.
All about that life though. That's what I first started off with. So I could just slip right back into that very quickly. That's probably the only thing that would tempt me away from 40K, I think. Yeah, that will rank and file. Like they've got to do it better though. I think like there might be Primarch stuff, but I do think you might see some I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we're too far off getting another Primaris range soon. A couple more Primaris units. Honestly, do. I don't see why we're not far away from that. I feel like we haven't had any for ages. Like I think there's going to be like a Terminator-esque model or something coming out soon.
Probably. Isn't Gravis meant to be the Terminator equivalent? I think it's the jump troops that we need, right? Because didn't GW fire a bunch of their playtesters or something like that? And they were like, all right then, if you don't not having us, but like here's all the stuff that's coming out, and dropped a whole bunch of leaks. Did something like that happen? And they leaked Primaris?
I think there was something like that. Because I think in 10th edition they said there's going to be the starter set, right? Like which is going to be like a new, and they reckon they're going to make. Wasn't there like a rumor they're going to make Firstborn like a supplement kind of thing, as well? Not like a buy supplement, or even just like a sub chapter. So you have to take mono Firstborn if you take Firstborn. You can't mix them in 10th. Like, that's legit. I reckon they should legend them, to be honest, but that's a very unpopular opinion. I'm just throwing it out there.
So then you could, instead of the term being like the army got squatted, the army got firstborn.
That's it. Just squats are back, baby.
Too good. Yeah, that was fun enough. Like one of the jokes talking about Leagues of O10. I'm just waiting for the model release of just like a dead squat. I was like, just get squatted, like just to the meme upon itself. The Leagues of O10, just in a circle meme becomes full circle. But yeah, we also have another.
I was just going to say quickly oh man, have I forgotten what I was going to say? So maybe they need to remove Firstborn Marines from like Codex Space Marines, because that might be what's causing the Warhammer like army building app to be so problematic. Just being like, oh no, we need to have all of the space set aside for all of the Marine data sheets, then all of that nonsense. Because like I know that was the problem for Battlescribe. But yeah,
I thought they were going to legitimately just get rid of them in 10th edition. So I think the fact that they're getting something is just a bonus for the people, So
yeah,
I'm gonna say.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But also, so we have a question in chat. So with the recent CSM Codex, we've got an FAQ, and it was less than half a page. But surprisingly, there's some things that weren't addressed. So, guys, so what do you think will the next go-to be if there was a CSM FAQ? For me, funnily enough, I was surprised Creations of Bar lived. I thought that would be gone like anything else, noting that Dark Harlequins got destroyed.
They don't do that in a FAQ. They will do that in a balance update.
Is that where it happened for?
Yeah, and you won't get that in an FAQ. You'll only get that in the balance data slate. So that will happen. I reckon it's like 90% happening, and it will happen in the data slate. But I also think we might get something to Leviathan Nids as well.
Just like make it mini transhuman on infantry, please.
No.
What do you mean no? Don't what?
Just don't do it. It's just they're just Dark Angel Terminators, but better and cheaper, and better in just every way. You know,
Hang on,
that's all it is. It's not even a big deal. No, but that's what I think they'll do. I think they won't do. They'll do baby transhuman because you still have Hive Nexus, right? So it'll still be good. So but you yeah. Then baby transhuman is just useless because you're never wounding a Tyranid warrior on a 2, right? So.
Excuse you, sir. I've been wounding them on 1s over here.
Well, you've been running 2,025 points too, mate. So anything goes over there.
Excuse you, sir. I said no to that. No, they're tough 5, aren't they? I don't think I've ever got up to that. But there's stuff that's high strength +1 to wound. Oh, Sam, you want us back on track?
That's right. Well, unfortunately, we have to close things up. But before we wrap things up, we'll answer this last question. Would a Warhammer Fantasy release diminish the 40k tournament scene? I got to start with myself. I don't know. I think it will diminish some things. Some people want to go back and play some official GW-approved rank and file. Maybe it will diminish a little bit, but I think the 40k scene now has grown so strong and it's developed. I mean, it's been a number of years since 8th edition was removed or no longer supported officially. So I think you'll see some people go back that just maybe weren't happy with 9th Age or weren't happy with Kings of War and want to play rank and file square bases again. But I don't know. It's a bit hard. We'll have to wait and see. We'll see what the old world happens. So, yeah. What about you, Towse?
I don't know. I kind of want to make some joke about the people that are leaving aren't real fans, but I don't know. I've basically just done 40k because rather than get too invested in different wargaming hobbies, I've just branched out into other hobbies. And if I want to do something like this, I'll do Warhammer and make do with it. So, I mean, personally, it won't have any influence on me, but I could imagine it'll probably. It depends how it goes, right? If you end up with tournaments on at the same weekend and competing, it'll diminish it a bit. Otherwise, it'll probably just have people, going to what they want, and yeah, you'd get more people coming into the overall hobby space coming back, and then maybe they might branch out into 40k.
Yeah, see what happens. What about you, Benny? Do you think people will come back? Do you think some 40k tournament faithfuls will join the old world?
It's good. It's going to just depend how good it is, isn't it? Really, and maybe how bad 40k is by then. You don't know. It could be a bit of both. Otherwise,
maybe Leviathan will get super transhuman. We can't win them on 5s.
You never know. Yeah, that doesn't seem good for the game.
No, can I only win them on 5s? Yeah.
I think that it's probably going to do more damage to Horus Heresy, if anything, right? Probably, maybe. I don't know. Because I don't see at the rate 40k is growing, Old World, if they come in and make it into one of the best games they've ever made, then yeah, potentially. It could happen. But they've got that's such a long time away, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's at least 3 Space Marine Codexes away.
No, because that's 18 months almost. That's 2 years. So I was thinking, what about 3 Imperial Guard Codexes away?
Oh, you're saying it's further away than that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll take ages because you've got to get the game good. Age of Sigmar's probably flourishing more in the last year and a half. Take COVID away, probably the year before COVID and now, isn't it? Because they're just kind of still figuring the game out a little bit. So
turns out if you make nice enough models, people will tell you double turn is good.
They are amazing models. I've been looking at their scale and stuff. It's good.
All right, before we get sidetracked, we have to wrap up this episode. Thanks everyone for joining
Sam.
I'm settling in, mate. I just got it, so I'm let's
go. So this next episode, the next episode on the horizon, just a little sneak peek. We've got the beautiful people from Team Iceland to recap about their WTC experience and also talk about what Iceland 40k is like. Is it battling it out with the dude from Game of Thrones just constantly on a day-to-day basis? We'll find out. So until next time, have a good one, everybody.
Oh, sit down.
Oh, you go Towse, time.
Mate, you keep closing off without me being able to ask. I was going to plug my own event. Are we also going to be trying to get the South African boys on for a thing? We're gonna. Yeah, cool.
We'll
That was
try.
it. That to look forward to too.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See you guys.
Thank you.